Welcome back, everybody, to this Rivals rundown of LXC Sentinel coming off of week 2. So, we're going to be going over some power rankings, predictions for week 3, all that good stuff. My name is Righteous, joined, I would say as always, but we had Husky on last time we did a stream.
I was busy doing
So,
something.
yeah, busy getting a win. But
Busy getting
joined
it. Oh, look
frequently
at that.
is CB. CB, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. We're starting slightly earlier than I think the last two times, so maybe I'll get to bed at a decent time, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, what did we do? It was like 2 hours last time. We're making good time. We got a lot to cover, dude. 14 teams, five
I,
players on each team.
so yeah, so I guess it'll go down because 14 teams for
Oh,
now.
shoot. Yeah. We can talk about that when we get to predictions. So,
Yeah.
welcome in, everybody. If you're not here, you're a bum. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see you on the VOD. But do you want to jump straight into it? What's the agenda for today, CB? I butchered it last time, so I'll let you talk about it.
True. First get to see your smiling face, and then we'll go to team standings. What happened week 2 that just wrapped up last week? Week 3 predictions, probably take a little intermission, and then player rankings and team rankings. Last but not least.
Yep, the intermissions will be periodic. I will say, if you aren't a fan of the ads, go ahead and hit us with that prime sub. You know what I'm saying? It would definitely help us out. But let's jump into it. CB, what do you got first?
Just a couple snips, of where we're
A couple
at.
snips. That looks pretty good, actually. Pretty good.
So this is current standings. All games have been played after week 2. So the bottom is just who played who. We're still holding strong on the prediction that Sector 1 on the left side is the harder sector. Uh, Holding strong through 2 weeks.
Um, why are Plasma Wolves and Braum Lives Ladder looking like that?
It's not on me. Don't blame me. I don't. That's just how
Okay,
it is on the
just how it
doc.
is on the
So
dock. Interesting. It's got that Rivals purple. I was just curious. Yeah, I mean, looking at the standings, right? I think the 0-8 contingent, RIP, 07's in the chat for our friends at Contingent Esports Fight. They're shaping up kind of as expected. A little bit of some surprises thrown in there. I didn't expect Roar to be 0-2 at this point. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see as the weeks go on, as more cross division games are played, if the notion that we have this bias now that Sector 2 is the weaker division, so we'll have to see if it holds up. But yeah, I mean,
is there
I
any
th
anything down below the actual results? Anything that sticks out as a really a big upset? I didn't really see anything that was too
I don't
crazy.
know if you watched the LXC VOD or read my article about the TFF OSG game. I mean TFF won 2-0, but it was not a convincing 2-0 in my eyes, and I was very surprised. Very
Okay.
surprised
Is
by that.
that TFF slacking a little, or is that OSGA just having
I
some bad
know
luck?
OSGA had like we talk about game scripts. They had their early game. They had TFS number in the early game, both games being able to secure first blood. I think they got feats of strength both games. Like they were making moves in the early game. It got to the point though. I think game one kind of blew up in their faces after a thrown Otacon. And then game two was just like a 35-minute engage that they took that looked really bad. And so, their mistakes ultimately did them in, but I was impressed with OSGA's early game, and then equally unimpressed with TFF's early game. But I think TFF just was like they're the more stable players, maybe a little bit more experience when it came to that mid to late game stuff. So it was
Okay.
crazy. It was crazy to watch.
Hmm. Okay. So they're sitting at TFF sitting at 4 with that in Sector 1. I don't know if those are really ties like 4, 5, 6, or if that's actually a tiebreaker because we talked about not too long ago the how the playoff seeding actually works and who actually makes playoffs. So
Hmm.
that 4, 5, 6 break. Still a lot of weeks left, but that'll be the important area to watch.
Yeah, important indeed. Yeah, other than that, like the rest of the results, the way that Roar's been playing, I was surprised NLE gave up a game. But I guess Triumphant was telling me that they're not a game one team. They kind of figure out game one and then adjust for games two and three, which can be scary as you play some tougher opponents. Um, and then I think you were a little bit surprised about BLM dropping a game to DPH, right?
Yeah,
Is what you're telling me.
it's tough. I always feel like it's bad juju to talk about a team right before you play them. So I don't know which team that speaks to. I feel like the consistent factor has been that DPH on paper looks like one of the bottom teams.
Hmm.
I think they have a couple decent players, but it seems like they've been towards the bottom. So, yeah, I don't know. That one's kind of the question mark. If
Yeah.
that's just they got a little relaxed one game, or
When I was
mm,
looking at the results, I think it was a game two, the DPH one. Um, they had like a pop off game from Rico. I think Rico went like 14-1 or something like that. So it could have just been like bad fights or something. Something to where DPH got ahead and it was gonna be really hard for them to lose the game because I think he was playing it was either MF or Jinx, but either way. Um, but other than that, I think the two wins that BLM had were pretty convincing. So
okay, okay,
either
yeah,
way, I think everybody gets a hiccup game.
true, true.
So
Okay.
they still got it. They got the 2-1.
Uh,
Uh,
quick side note: much appreciated Eyesight and Salo for the Prime subs.
Yo, what? Hello? Who got the train going, brother?
Yeah, but you didn't call them out, did you? Am I tripping?
No, me. Where's my shout out?
What the hell? Nah, you gotta shout yourself out.
All right, shout out myself, supporting the boys.
Infinite loop
Yeah, dude, infinite money glitch.
and
And then there
triumphant
you go. There
and
you go.
triumphant.
Our boy
Yeah.
triumphant.
He should have done that last week. I would have rated him higher. No, just kidding. Do we want to just jump into week 3? Some
Yeah, let's go to
prediction
week three
action.
predictions. Yeah. Actually have a fun little sheet for this.
Okay, okay. What the hell? You're supposed to wing it. You're the stats guy.
Yeah, I do. I will wing it, but I just like looking at some stats. Who we got first? HPB and TFF.
Yes, sir.
All right, you talk a little bit about what you want to talk about, and then I'll jump into.
Well, first off, the one time I don't proofread it, you get it wrong. And you know what? I didn't have time
Oh,
to proofread
TFF,
it.
it's Plasma Wolves. That's my bad. You know what? So I gave this. This is the earliest I've given CB these slides to go over to proofread me because I do all of them.
Yeah, and I trusted you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
he has so much
And
time to do it that there's no
yeah,
rush.
I'm trying to pump these out. I got school and work. You
Oh
know how it
my
is.
gosh. Okay.
Anyways,
It's
uh, you know
PLW.
what? I'll fix it. I'll fix it right
It's
now, and
PLW, right? It's
we can
PLW.
get. Yeah, let me. I'll
Pl-
fix it. I'll fix it. I'll
Okay, yeah,
fix
the
it.
logos are correct.
The logos are correct. It's the
Okay,
abbreviation.
okay. Well, we just played HPB. We pulled out the 2-1 win. PLW, I've been high on them as one of, if not the best team. So I think HPB is a solid team. Obviously, can't say too much. It was a 2-1, so that holds some weight. Haven't played PLW ourselves yet, so I would give PLW a 2-1 win over Hydro Pump. I don't know if Plasma Wolves have dropped a game or not yet.
I believe it's
Mm,
been 2-2-0s for Plasma Wolves.
not surprised. Um,
Yeah,
so
pretty
I don't
good.
know. I
Pretty
feel
good.
like Hydro Pump can take a game off of them. I think they're good enough. Let me see who PLW's actually played. I think they did play a good team. They played TFF, which are letting me
Week
down,
one. Mm-hmm.
and then they did just play TDB and beat them 2-0, who I also think
Mm-hmm.
is a solid team. So I think Hydro Pump's good enough to where if Plasma Wolves 2-0s them, then Plasma Wolves is for sure the team to beat. The other two teams are I don't know if they're actually super great or not. It's too early to tell. Thoughts as you're typing stuff?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
it's updated.
Okay.
It's not under week 3. It's under a copy of,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's week 2 predictions for or something like that. Anyways, I'll jump in while you're fixing it so we can give Plasma Wolves their due. Got a fun little sheet that LXC has. It compares the teams heads to head, right? Like their games played, their stats, everything like that. So Hydro Pump, one more game played because they lost the 2-1 to us. But on paper, this matchup is a lot closer than I initially thought. I don't think Hydro Pump's bad by any means. I just thought Plasma Wolves would be a lot better. But a couple key stats that I like to look at. I know KDA isn't the end all be all, but it is a good indicator of, are you as a team able to perform and do various things without trading even or behind with the opposing team. So I like to look at that. I like to look at the vision score per minute, basically how well you can control the map, and then the gold per minute as well. How effective are you at controlling in econ? You know, can you maximize the gold potential? Are you dropping unnecessary waves and stuff like that? So with those in mind, those 3 stats, Team KDA Hydro Pump is favored 4.49 to 4.13. So not a big difference, but it is a difference. Average score per minute, or average vision score per minute, 12.1 for Hydro, 10.53 for Plasma Wolves, which it doesn't seem like a lot, but on paper, like if you're as a support losing the vision battle by 2 vision score per minute to 0, basically, you'd be considered like that would be like a massive support gap. So with that kind of lens, it's kind of a big deal. And then the gold earned 31.34 for Hydro, 30.6 for Plasma Wolves. So if you're just comparing the stats, you take nameplates off. This is Hydro's stats even with a 2-1 loss. Um, it could be a low key banger, like a dark horse. Like I wish this was streamed kind of game.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Okay. 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 So all that to say, who do you think is gonna win?
I think Plasma Wolves 2-0.
Oh, you don't even trust the
Yeah,
stats, man. It's crazy.
I do, but I said nameplates off. Nameplates on. It's really hard to go against what Plasma Wolves is doing right now. Um, One of, if not the best team in the league. There's a couple vying for that. Um, so it's Hydro Pump came off of a tough loss. Apparently, Key was sick. I'm not gonna say it was an
That's
excuse,
flu
but
game though.
yeah, flu game. He's no Michael Jordan. So I don't know. They also didn't have their mid laner last week, so maybe there is something
True.
to this game. But what did you say? Did you say it was 2-0
I
Plasma
said
Wolves?
I think 2-1. I think 2-1 Plasma
2-1.
Wolves.
Okay, okay. So you're a little bit more aligned with the stats there.
Yeah, I
All
think I
right.
think HP is good enough. So we'll see.
Week 3, another Sector 1 game, TD Bless versus OSGA. Um, this game this game's kind of a low key banger too. I think OSGA is a lot better than they have let on, um, especially with how they played TFF. Um, TD Blessed got the week 1 win against Roar. Roar's been disappointing so far, and then they lost to, who did they lose to? Plasma Wolves 2-0. Um, so I'm a little bit torn. I'm gonna say it's TD Blessed 2-1. Looking at the stats, they are favored across the board. The KDA by far. Uh, OSGA has a tendency to, when they lose hard. So their team KDA is 0.73, which is not good. But everything else is close. 10.9 vision score for TD, 9.31 for OSGA. The gold per minute, they're outpacing OSGA by about 6. Um, I think OSGA's early game, if they can put it all together, they could take a game off, but they just haven't shown to me that they can actually function as a team when it comes to the mid to late game. And I think TD Blessed, everyone has said they've been around for a while. They've been playing together. I think that gives them the edge.
Okay, okay, okay. TD is one of in kind of the middle group to where I don't know if I've seen enough to tell if they're good or not. Um, I was high on them coming into week one. OSGA's kind of been on the bottom side, so I would probably say TDB 2-0. And it's really just kind of a question mark around both teams. Is OSGA really one of the last teams, last place teams, or is TDB just kind of had a bad week against a good opponent last week? So
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think TD. I
I
wouldn't be
will
surprised
say
2-0.
this is we're talking about predictions. This is gonna be Riven's get right game. I've been kind of hard on him, especially with the article. Kind of called him out. He said we rated him too low, and then he got rated lower the next week. Riven's going against a player in Brissinger who's punching up. Like he's I think silver or bronze right now. Um, he I think he's learning, which is good. I try not to be too hard on people that are really trying their best. You could tell. It's just like when I was watching the games from their VOD against TFF, uh, they, him and the team don't know how to get him involved. They kind of try to like hide him, either in a side or like playing a team fight champ. But I think he went like 0-8-0 across those two games against TFF, so he really was a non-factor. And so I think Riven will be kind of looking at that and saying, okay, like I can get going off of this game. That's my prediction.
So good opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
But if he doesn't, ooh
He's
boy,
cooked.
yeah, he might be cooked. All right, CB, you can lead us off on this one.
NLE versus TFF. NLE's 2-0. I think TFF, are they 0-2?
TFS 1-1. They lost to Plasma Wolves and then they
1-1.
beat OSGA.
Okay, okay. NLE, the homies. Um,
Homies. The homo.
TFF, I thought we're going to be a top 4 to 5 team, like for sure. I was pretty confident in it preseason. Letting me down. They're in that middle group of, don't know. So I got to rock with NLE in a 2-0, close 2-0 series, but still pulling out the 2-0.
2-0. Even
I
after Triumphant said they're not a game one squad.
I think so. That's
Okay,
that's a
that's how
psyche.
confident
That's
you
a
are.
psyche talking.
Okay, okay, okay.
We'll see if they get some of their spicy picks. Diet Coke. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No, we'll say nothing. But let's see. I'm thinking 2-0. I think TFF needs this win. I just looking at can I look at the actual schedule?
Yeah, I got it pulled up. So week 4, we
Oh,
don't
what happened to
know.
week 4? Oh, that's the
So that was the one that was all janky because they had OSG playing each other twice in 2 weeks, and so it's gonna be rivals week. It's gonna be like the 1 seed from Sector 1 faces the 1 seed of Sector 2, and so on down the list.
hmm,
So if you're looking at the standings, if they hold right now, um, TFF would be playing either No Veracity or OSG Sub Zero in that week.
okay,
Um,
okay. It feels like this week. I mean, they have one of the tougher schedules. I mean, there's a lot of good teams, but like they play TD. I don't know what happens week 6 with CE. So I guess are we doing buys? I guess.
yeah, week 6
But
they'll have a bye.
they
They don't
play
get the cross
Hydro
division.
Pump us. Like there's not really any free wins. I'd say other than the FF. So I think this is a game they have to win. But I still
Yeah,
think NLE pulls it out in 2-0.
there you go. So this is the biggest gap on paper so far when comparing two teams. Now I will say NLE has a 2 game sample size larger than TFF. TFF's lost 2 and then won 2. NLE's won 2-1 games, 2-1s match series. KDA 5.21 to TFF's 3.76. Now here's the big one. Vision score per minute, NLE 16.84 and TFF 10.96. Um, which makes sense when you
Can't see
track
shit.
Triumphant's play. Yeah, they won't be able to if this holds up, right? Like if you're just putting the paper onto the Rift. Triumphant likes to get unlocked early. Has full confidence in Ferdy, kind of 1v2ing the lane. Doesn't think Ferdy will get punished. And he's all around the map, right? Kind of in tandem with Koi. So it makes sense that the division priority for NLE is there. And then looking at the gold per minute, 30.45 for NLE compared to 28.23 for TFF. So not a huge difference, just like 2 gold. But that big one for me is that vision score. Teams that control the vision usually control the game. I'll say it's a 2-1 for NLE, just because I think they'll chop game one. If trends stand, they've lost. Well, I guess they won
Well, I
the
guess
game one against us, but
yeah.
then we actually played them because of like game one was kind of a fluky thing. So game two was really the game one. Anyways,
Hey, I counted up all of our times that we played them, and I think it's 5-5 right now. So we're
yeah, we're
we're
close, we're
tied. We're
close.
even tied.
But I think unless TFF can really punish the way Triumphant wants to play, um, I think it'll be that NLE 2-1 victory. We'll see though.
We shall see. The
Moving right
game that we
along.
don't talk about.
I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit, but we won't give our predictions because we all know it's Rivals 2.
True.
The I've been kind of hard on Broad Lives Matter just because I think they play in the easier division, and then you made mention like they dropped the game against DPH, which seems kind of crazy to me. Um, but I've been told that in the past they were a solid playoff team. Um, so I think it'll be a banger. I think every series that Rivals is going to play in is going to be a banger because I think we will always play teams closer than we need to. That's just my honest opinion.
That is an unfortunate trend that we have going on, but it just allows us to play more games. So
Yeah, and get
that's
more content.
yeah, and more content. So yeah, I don't know. Not obviously not gonna give it a score. I'll say there are a few teams that I thought were gonna be better that are letting me down, and BLM's one of the teams that I thought was not gonna be as good, and they are um, playing better than I expected. So not
When I
overlooking the prep.
Brom Lives Matters stats have to be, yeah, they're messed up. They haven't played 11 games, surely.
Hmm.
So I'm not even gonna look at that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I don't know. Who knows?
We will see. Mirrors with the 3-0 prediction, which is wild.
He's Canadian. You can't add.
Yeah, he can't add. He's too busy getting tariffed by
Yep.
Mr. President. OTLO versus Aurora, the battle of the 4-letter acronym teams.
Yeah.
This was a tough one. Not because Roar's playing lights out. They've lost. I think it was 1-2 matches for them.
Yep.
If you guys watched the LXC podcast, I said OTLO is probably the most overrated Sentinel team because we here at Rivals are big Sector 2 haters.
Okay.
I won't speak for CB. I'm a big Sector 2 hater. Um, I think it's a solid squad top to bottom, but I think they're carried by their jungler. Which is, I mean, if you're gonna get carried by someone, get carried by your jungler. Latex Monkey Nuts goes crazy. I don't know if Roar's a team that will let him go crazy for free. I think a lot of Roar's issues is I think they're taking bad fights and losing them, but they're taking the fights. Like they won't just give stuff for free. OTLO's solo laners haven't been entirely impressive. They've been, upper middle tier. Their bot lane seems solid. I think they'll be fine into Roar's bot lane. I just imagine that this series is going to be closer. So I'm actually going to go I'm gonna go with the higher ranked team right now, it's yellow, but I'm gonna go 2-1. I think Roar continues this playing all teams close but never winning a series trend that they got going. They'll take a game off, but they won't win the whole
Mm.
thing.
I I do believe OTLO will finally. I think game. It looks like games 2 and 3. They're intending on using their starting top laner. For what that's worth, they've been using a sub weeks 1 and 2. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Obviously first in their division. Division 2. Let's not get too crazy. Um, RAR, man, I've been a RAR fan. This split, I just both weeks rooting for them. They let me down. Like you said, it's just 1-2 losses. So are they
So, do
always
you want
going to
some
be
stats that make you feel better?
sure?
You take out KDA, so OTLO, usually when you win, you have high KDA, so 4.19 compared to Roar's 2.27. The vision score per minute for Roar, and these stats are real. They don't have games that don't exist. 19.37 per minute for Roar. That just means their solo laners, their carries are all contributing to vision. Compared to OTLO's 11.1. And then a big one, teams gold per minute, 32.97 in favor for OTLO compared to Roar's 29.85. And I think part of that is probably objective gold. It seems like the teams that are winning consistently are over the 30 gold per minute, and the teams that are losing are a shade under 30. So um, it's gonna be close, I think. I like I said, I don't have any confidence in Roar at this point, but I think it'll be close.
I think maybe they just need to sub Dokian if they want to win. Is kind of
Uh,
what it's feeling like. I'm gonna give RAR one last one last week of love. I'm gonna have them pulling out the 2-1 upset over OTLO.
okay.
Uh, it's not really a knock on OTLO. I think they're a solid team. Obviously, number one in their sector for a reason. But it's more just saying RAR needed 2 warm-up games. Most teams just need one. They need two. It's okay. So I'm gonna give them the 2-1.
Yeah, one last thing to know about this series. So OTLO, when they're winning fast. They've only played 4 games, average game time of 33 minutes. Roar's played 6, going the distance in both of their matches, and their average game time is 37, which, it's only a difference of 4 minutes. But when you win a game in 33 minutes or less, you think that oh, we stomped them. When you lose a game in 37 minutes or more, you're like, man, like we played well, but we just couldn't pull it out. So I think Roar has all the tools that they can really turn their season around. This would be a huge win for them, taking out the number one seed in Sector 2. But I just don't know.
I think this is the
Okay.
last one.
Yeah, I think so. Because what team gets the bye this week? Courtesy of
Oh yeah,
contingent, or not
bunch of
contingent.
quitters.
Oh, it is contingent. Yeah,
Sub
it
Zero gets the
is
bye.
Sub-Zero. So there you go. Now it's interesting. Well, we could just talk. We'll talk about the matchup. I wonder if because contingent FF'd, if it'll actually negatively affect the seeding, because like Problem Lives Matter won 2-1 against contingent. Veracity win 1-2-1, 2-0 against contingent. So like BLM might get screwed at the end of the season because they have that one loss. I wonder if they'll just erase that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
don't usually whenever teams drop, especially if it's late in the season, just they go back and all the other games go to O2, like FF losses to make it
Yeah, I don't
the
know.
same.
I think to make it, because to make it fair, you would just probably make it a 2-0, right?
Yeah, for
And
everybody.
then you probably just erase those stats for that game too, like
Yeah, the stats are
that
also where it
match.
gets wonky.
Anyways, that's for somebody else to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Not us.
Quitters always
Looking
ruining
at,
stuff.
yeah, quitters always ruin stuff. Um, DPH, dropping point Hellfire versus Veracity. I've been starting them off. So CB, you got the last one.
Okay. DPH, I think's kind of been at the bottom of our boards since the beginning. We're only 2 weeks in, but they did take a game off of BLM. I just don't know if that speaks to BLM or DPH more. And then no veracity let me down week 1. they said it was a get right game. They didn't get to play week 2. I don't think they didn't play, right? It was FF before they played, or did they play and then it was FF? I don't remember.
For
Either way,
Veracity,
yeah, Veracity versus CE for week 2.
they won. They played week 2. So game 1, they had a sub top laner, I believe. Current contingent did, and then game 2, Prussian came back, and then I think both games is when I blow bubble played support for them.
Okay,
I
yeah, so it was a
think
2-0 either way.
so. What in my imagination, Prussian ranked out, and then they had 2 spots that they had to fill because they still didn't have a starting support. And I think that's when contingent pulled the plug and said, like this, it's just not gonna work out. So
That's fair. That's fair. So blame Prussian is what I'm hearing.
yeah, blame Prussian.
I can't give my confidence into DPH even though they did take 1 game off of BLM. I'll feel maybe differently depending on how tomorrow night's game of ours go against Brown Lives Matter. But gonna rock with Veracity. Gonna give them kind of similar to RAR. Another week of confidence in them. So I'm gonna give them a 2-0 victory. So Veracity 2-0 over Dropping Point.
Yeah, makes sense for me as well. I think Veracity is a really solid team. I think their week 1 wasn't indicative of like how they're actually gonna be able to play because Tyler wasn't there. And then Pradles had like this just weird hiccup game where it seemed like he just lived to die week 1. But their week 2 was a get right game. They got the game 1 win against the sub top, which did a pretty good job filling in for Prussian, but it wasn't really the same kind of caliber player. And then of course still it up in game 2. So um since we've been doing the stats for everybody, we might as well continue on. Um, KDA's Veracity's leading 3.14 to 2. Average vision per minute, Veracity needs to get their game going up because DP leads 11.89 to 10.39. And then for the gold, I've lost my spot. Veracity leads 29.7 to 27.43. I think DP has the lowest gold per minute of any team. But I also think they on paper have probably like the lower ranked, one of the most, I think the lowest rank on average. Um, so
Yeah, DPH.
missing a minion here or there could contribute to that low GPM. Um, what did you say your game score for this?
Yeah, I think Veracity 2-0.
Yeah, I agree. I
They
think
are they're the 4th and 5th seed as of right now in Sector 2, which I guess only 1 spot in Sector 2 will be initially eliminated because there will only be 6 teams.
yeah, from
the
that
4th and 5th
play-in
play each
game.
other, right? So really just the 6th seed is all you have to avoid.
Yeah, so right now it's between Roar and Dropping Point Hellfire of who wants it more. Sitting at 0-2. But yeah, I think there's not a lot of reason to believe that DPH pulls off the upset here. But you never know. I mean, you play the games for a reason, right? Like it'd be boring if the paper just told you the outcome. So,
True, we'll see.
uh, I like my my boys over at Veracity, but I'm always a big underdog fan too. So if DPH could get a game off of them, that'd be sick. But I don't expect it to happen.
Okay, that's it for all of the predictions for week 3.
Wanna throw it to a break and then come back and get into the power rankings?
I think we run one of them.
You want to run one of them? We have
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll start with the most important role, obviously.
Yeah. Everybody knows that is support.
It's obviously support.
To be not ego inflated whatsoever.
The people that get overlooked. The
offensive linemen, dude. We've been over this.
yeah.
They're the thing that makes teams go, but never get any of the credit.
Mm-hmm.
The supports. We don't have the previous rankings up on the screen. I will read through them real quick. Caveat: we heard you were all you people that like solidified power rankings didn't like the ties that we had going on, so we decided to eliminate them through some criteria we have developed. So none of the power rankings will have ties, but last week's did. Number one was Triumphant. Number two, XL Physiology, the sub for TD Blast. Tied for third was Slivik of HPB and Lunar Paw of OTLO. Number five, Aoka. Number six, Poodle 25. Seven, Dorsky. Eight, Adrian Legitness. Nine, Brute Souls 166. Tied for 10th, Foxhound Kaz. RIP, CEW, and then Veracity Scarlet. 12, CB the Barbarian.
What the
13,
hell?
Never Knows Best, and 14, Billy Butthole. So that was your support lineups. Everybody remember that. We won't ever go over it again. Just kidding. We'll talk about it. But
True, true. And as always, these are our, of course, unofficial rankings for content purposes and whatnot.
they're official in
Um,
our hearts.
they're official in our hearts because stats aren't 100% definitive. So, of course, LXC has all the official stats. You can look those up. These are just ours. So, boohoo.
Well, these aren't stats. These are just rankings.
Same thing. Ranking
But yeah.
stats.
All right. Leading us off, number 14, gonna be OSG Novacan. So I believe,
Roll swap,
and
right?
somebody from OSG will have to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's gonna be a permanent fixture. I think Odin Gaming is gonna slot in for jungle for them going forward, and I think Novacan's gonna be its support. My guess is that they're trying to build an identity and they want a strong ball in. Xarxes and OSG Novacan are the two highest ranked players of that team. Um, it looked okay. I think First Blood game one was a nice little setup from Novacan and crew. It just wasn't enough to upset TFF. We'll have to kind of monitor that going forward. I don't know. I mean, you'll have to ask the players at TFF how well they kind of were in lane. I thought it looked fine. It makes sense on paper what they're trying to do. I just don't know if it's gonna be the results they're looking for.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, they have an opportunity this week uh, to not only to get a win, but also for a lot of their players to climb up uh, the ranking. So somebody has to be last. Obviously, as you can see, we did not instant put CE's players at last.
Yeah, because it's going off a week two. It's going
Yeah,
off a week
it's
two.
going off week 2, and they did play. So I assume moving forward we'll just have 13 rankings. But for this week, we have
I
our
mean, we could just have 14 and just put CEW at the bottom of every
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Keep it simple.
This is the at least for Novocaine, this is you will go up next week, regardless.
Probably. Oh well, yeah. Regardless,
So
you can only go as low as 13. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Moving on, I blow bubble from CEW for 13. Bubble support, good. I think they play mid for their Arbiter team, which is
yep.
the league below. Try to fill in there. Wasn't enough. Prussian ranking out. My theory is that's what exploded the team. I don't know for sure. You'll have to ask them, but just just enough to take number 13 on these final rankings for CEW.
Yeah, I think playing off roll up as a sub, and also I assume even in the game, I'm guessing the team knew it was going to like implode. I don't know if they did, but I don't know if that's indicative of the actual our rankings. But I assume a lot of CE players are lower on the list just because how their last series went.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They never got a
and
win, and then they limped out.
never got a win. So yeah, 13, 14 I feel like was pretty close. I don't remember if 12 is, but I feel like those kind of could have went either way.
Yeah, we'll have to. I'll pull up mine. I don't remember what yours were, but at number 12, Never Knows Best for DP. Like I said, had a pretty nice game two with Rico in the bot lane. I don't have the victory screens 100% pulled up. if CB has them handled
I have
handy.
the win rate. Ooh, not the win rate screens. Win screens, yeah. What are we looking at?
I think it was
DPS
game
games?
two. Yeah, game two. Was the one I think they won. Where Rico popped off.
It would probably help if I look at the right team.
Probably.
The defeat logo looks like, DP because it's on fire. Yeah, that's game two is where DP won. Rico popped off 14-3, so Never Knows Best popped off with a 3-3-20 bomb
Yep.
on Alistar. So I think that game right there is why
Mm-hmm.
they're above the other two supports.
100%.
So I will say those three are in similar categories, but having a one pop off game to stand on is enough to separate you.
Mm-hmm. 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 I agree wholeheartedly. Number 11. Root Souls 166 from BLM. It was a toss up. The stats had Brute Souls one spot below Never Knows Best, and then I think your rankings had them pretty close as well.
Yeah,
Maybe a
I
couple
had
spots.
so far the rankings are identical to what I ranked.
Um BLM 2-0, Brute Souls being down here. I think it's because in that loss to DP, when the bot lane pops off, the opposing bot lane doesn't do very well in those cases. So that's kind of part of it. And then I think it's really the Kamo Drakenrich show for BLM, which is fine. I mean, that's their philosophy to success. That's their winning formula. It just kind of leaves out the periphery teammates there. If you're not asked to do a lot, you're not going to put out a lot of stats. So, Brute Souls at 11. Anything else to add?
No, I just think the bot lane matchup seemed on paper decently close in their series, which is why they're pretty close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
On the rankings. Granted, I will get to see firsthand Brute Souls tomorrow in the bot lane. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Moving on to the top 10 at number 10.
What the hell? I mean, I'm going in the right direction, I guess.
You're going in the right direction. So last week, number 12, up 2 spots. Uh, Stats had you at number 10. I won't make you say where you ranked yourself because that's kind of a
What
ego. But
the what the fuck?
uh,
That's just the
Stats had you at
truth.
10, so
I should have
you're
put me at
you're
one.
yeah. There you go.
That's had me at
Um,
10. That's weird. That's a weird average then, huh? That's weird.
well, it's just I don't know. I averaged it correctly.
It's
Okay.
okay. What was that? I was 12 last week, right? So it's like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm chilling. We're 1-1, and we went to game 3 every series. So, um, for sure, yeah, there's some bias built in there. I don't know.
Got caught out a couple times.
I will
Redeemed
say
yourself.
my excuse, as I assume my stats will never push me into, even if we win almost all of our games, will never even push me into the top 5 or 6 because of the very first game. Is my guess.
Maybe.
But that's just my excuse that I tell myself. DCing game 1 and not playing.
How
So.
about you just try playing better? How about that?
I try that, but like my coach is like fucking holding me back.
Yeah, yeah.
He wants me to
No,
play
you
Yumi every game.
yourself. We have the VOD. You got caught on Seraphine once, and then I think you got caught again. Those are like the two hiccup plays from our series last
Yeah,
week.
I was getting bored.
Yeah,
Let's get in there.
making it fun. Um, in the right direction. I think so. Stats really dinged you. It's like in school, right? You can have like an A average, and as soon as you get an F, it really hurts you. So
True.
that game one, um, kind of dinged you because you just weren't on the map for half the game. So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
I feel like if Rivals continues to win, everybody should start to move up. But
Yeah. That
anyways,
feels fair considering how the weeks have went. So I won't lose any sleep over it. Moved up 2 spots, so we'll see if I can perform tomorrow night. The battle
moving
for
on.
10th and 11th tomorrow.
Number 9, Dorsky. I always get these ones backwards. I have it ready this time. That's OSGS's support. Um, I think I didn't flame him, but I called him out a little bit in my little article thing. Said he was the player that needed to improve
What the?
in their 2-1 loss, 2-1 or 2-0, 2 something,
This is Sub-Zero. They 2-1 to RAR, and they...
2-0 loss to OTLO.
Hmm.
Had a couple tough games. I think the Tom Kench stood out from what I remember. He played Tom Kench Thresh. I know for sure. This is off the top of the dome. It just didn't look
Yep, those two.
too impressive. So I think that's just kind of how he ends up at number 9. Uh, I think he has like pretty high KP for support. I can pull it up
I...
real quick.
maybe. I don't know. They let their AD carry play Aphelios. That's not fair. He did have
Why?
decent vision.
Oh yeah. He averaged 2.51 vision score per minute across all the games that he's played thus far. Only 60% KP, but second highest on his team. I think, like we talked about, uh, you're getting dinged because of the snowstorm, and I think Dorsky is just kind of solidly in the middle somewhere. Last week was actually at number 7, so with the results from week 2, got dinged a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean, most players, in theory, if you get O2'd, you're probably going to drop a spot or two, unless you're just like the one player that is shining while the rest of your team's inting. But
mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I mean, they played OTLO, who has a very good bot lane, so makes sense they would drop a little bit still in the middle of the pack. They do have, I think they have the bye this next week, so ranking wise, I don't know. I was thinking about that earlier. For the whenever you have a bye, you kind of expect to drop a spot just because everyone else has more to go off of. I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know. It could be one of those things though, where the people above you,
Kind of evens
uh,
out.
yeah, don't play particularly well. So while they're getting hurt, you're not because you're not playing. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It'll be tough to judge. We'll have to see.
It's extra week of practice.
Yeah, extra week of practice. That's good. That's why you have bye weeks in the NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, Adrian Legitness from Roar. Adrian's well, the Roar team is kind of an enigma to me because we've talked about how their stats look pretty good despite um not being great. So Adrian is by far the most bloodthirsty support of the league. He's averaging over 300 damage per minute, which to put in perspective, I think it's usually about 150 for supports, between 150 and 250. But his vision score, he's averaging 3 vision score per minute, which is, I don't know if that guy's just crapping out wards as he walks across the map or what. I don't know if he's just walking out there, putting wards back in, getting more
Yeah,
wards,
he dropped
walking
the
out.
157 vision score on one of the games.
Yeah, yeah, like that guy's doing work for Roar's vision. He's averaging 107 um for just on a per game basis, like the bulk stat. So um if you ever listen to LS, it's kind of like an inflated stat and a bloat stat because if you're putting in that much vision out, one of the theories is you're spending so much time just moving across the map that you're missing out on gold or playmaking opportunities. So we'll have to see how Adrian Legitness plays forward. Coming in the coming weeks. But so far he's definitely the vision leader, I think.
Yeah. They did play against Italy, who's a good team themselves. They gave Triumphant his rel 2 games, so it's kind of tough, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, being 0-2 as a team and still being ranked 8th, I think is pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing to scoff at. I can see them ending top half of the boards if RAR can figure it out. I don't know.
We'll have to see. The bottom of the top half, number 7. Who we got? I don't remember.
Scarlet.
Veracity, Scarlet, and Pradles with a bounce back week. Um, Scarlet's just solid across the board. 4 KDA thus far this season, 63% KP, averaging 2.7 vision score per minute. Just, solidly average, which is at number 7.
Played a back-to-back Karma games this last week. I, I do think it's tough for all the Veracity players on how, like, just given CE's like team state of week
Mm-hmm.
two. I don't really know how much that played into it, but yeah, I did played Karma both games and seemingly did really well. So I don't remember what Scarlet was last week, but
I
can't
can
complain
tell you,
about.
I got it already. Scarlet was tied for 10th, so moving on up.
Oh yeah,
Makes sense. When you win, you usually go up.
hmm but yeah, no surprise there.
Number 6. Gonna be
Slip.
Slivik. Tied for 3rd last week. Um, you landed against them last week. Any just initial thoughts on the ranking? Um,
I've slept since then. Um, I think was solid. Obviously, we won 2-1, so I think game two was pretty back and forth, so it was pretty close. Series, I think they took one pretty solidly, and we took game three solidly. So I'd say solid support. I thought that Hydro Pump's uh, bot lane was going to be one of the best. Like I thought they were going to be better than NLE's, which NLE has a solid bot lane. After playing that, and obviously we've played NLE more, scrims and whatnot, so I'd give NLE's bot lane the edge. So I mean, pleasantly surprised that they weren't the best ever because we got to play them and we got to win. But definitely a solid support with some good champ pools. I just
yeah, it'll be
expected to get
interesting
pooped on.
to track HPB, their players across these individual rankings as they go forward. Because right now, Slivik is the KDA leader of the league, I believe, at 10.25. Um, a lot of that is like that bloat from their 2-0 victory week 1 where they just absolutely took it to OSGA. Um, so if Slivik, starting, we'll say starting after week 1, tied for 3rd, if they keep slipping, it's kind of indicative of like maybe it was just like a one-off game, like a blip for them. But if they stay like solidly upper middle of the pack, then I think it's gonna be good for HPB, especially with Key being their ADC there. We'll have to see. Um, I didn't think their champ pool was particularly impressive. I thought the Morgana into what we drafted game 1 was really good. Um, but outside of
Yeah,
that, it didn't seem like Slivik had too much of an impact on the game or the map compared to some of the other supports we've played against. So it'll be something to track as the weeks go on where this player ends up.
agree.
But we move on to the top 5.
Top five,
Number
top five.
5, Barbaric Champion for TD Blessed. I don't remember exactly
They lost
anything.
0-2 versus Plasma Wolves though.
Yes.
So Barbaric, didn't they sit out week one or am I tripping?
Yeah, set out week 1, so it was XL Physiology. That was the
Okay.
support sub.
Okay, so Barbaric played a Braum game with the Lucian. Doesn't look like it went super well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then got a Milio game. They lost, but one-handed Barbaric champion kind of popped off in the
Yeah, they
bot lane.
played really
So
well.
I think that's why even after a loss, Barbaric is still top five.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2.87 vision score per minute, albeit on a smaller sample size. I did like what they did in their series, despite losing to a really good Plasma Wolves team. So ends up at number 5. Like TD Bless in my mind is like solidly like if you took the now this is before we do our actual rankings. I just think like a middle of the pack team, right? Like I don't think their highs are gonna be as high as like Plasma Wolves or OTLO or these teams that have been at the top for a little bit now, I don't think their lows are ever going to be as low as like the DP Hellfires or the OSGA so far.
Hmm.
So, you know, will Barbaric end up in the top five when all is said and done after every game has been played? Who knows? It could, but also couldn't. So top five right now, I think deserve playing well into the Plasma Wolves spot lane, but we'll have to see if it continues.
Yeah, I will say I think it's the highest vision score individual game that I've at least seen on these screens. A 170 on the Milio.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Sentinel 5's pretty good. I have a note, but I'll save it. I'll save it until we see everybody.
Okay. Okay.
It's more of a in general support note, but we can move on to number 4.
Let's do that then. Number four, Lunar Paw of OTLO was tied for third
Okay,
in
so
week one's rankings.
kind
So
of the
didn't
same.
yeah, didn't technically move.
Mm.
Um, and you'll see why here in a second when we talk about I think number three or number two, whoever is above them. Like I said with Brute Souls, this is kind of just like expounded upon with OTLO. A lot of what they do, a lot of the success they have is through jungle. Doesn't necessarily mean that the other players are gonna have the craziest of stats, but Lunar Pod definitely really solid in the stats department and on a very good team. Makes sense that they're in the top five, number four right now.
Yeah, and one of the few supports that's taking the flexed Galio uh,
Mm-hmm.
support. So New Lunar was going to be top 5, I think, even since preseason. So consistently in the top 4, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
No surprise there. Did play Sub Zero, who have a big question mark around. So you're not going to drop out of the top 5 if you're winning games, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if they can stay top 4 moving forward.
Into the top three, bringing up the bronze slot. It's Ayoka from Plasma Wolves. So Ayoka, I don't know what it was after week one that either the stats or you didn't like. Ayoka was number five. Has since moved up to number three, jumped Lunar Paw in the process. Solid player. Laning with the best ADC, one of the best ADCs in the league. Typically does that. But a lot of the ADC success, of course, does spawn from the support able to carry him through the lane phase and, of course, set him up in team fights and stuff like that. So Ayoka right up there at number three. I
You
don't think
say
anybody would have problems with that.
No, I don't think so. You said you questioned why I had Aoka so low at one point. Is that what you said?
No, I don't know. They were just number five
Oh,
in our initial week one rankings. I think I
I
don't
think it
know.
was
I don't
just
remember what we had in the preseason. I think it's because Slivik popped off. XL Physiology had a good game or a good
preseason.
series.
Aoka started pretty low, so it started at 10. So it's been
Okay, yeah, it
a
was just
big
on
climb
paper
up.
stuff.
So it's just on
Yeah.
paper where they started. So, and we said from the beginning it's kind of the week 3-ish mark of when people start to settle. So I think after this next week is really where I think people will settle. Like have stopped moving due to the preseason on paper stuff. So
Hmm.
um,
Unless they have a real bad game or a real bad
yeah,
series
that's
at
true.
one
Yeah,
point.
it
But
just
yeah,
like stunts your growth. But
yeah.
one of if not the best team, one of if not the best AD carry. No surprise that Ayoka is top 3. Ayoka.
Ayoka. Number two,
Ooh.
silver support, silver scrapes. Gonna be Poodle 25. So Poodle was one of the few kind souls that reached out to me after writing my little article thing. Was like, man, I didn't feel like, you know, I didn't like how I was only mentioned because I got caught out for first blood. I think this will kind of make up for it. I think Poodle is by far and away the highest KP support um of any player, sitting at almost 90%. I think 86% overall. Solid vision, 2.81 vision score per game. And a lot of TFX's success so far have been Efron, Poodle, and Chrome alone, kind of like shouldering the load as Islamic Samurai and Coach Silent K kind of figured things out. So Poodle definitely deserving with that high KP, making sure that Efron and Chromalone are popping off in team fights in the mid to late game. Um, you know, above Aoka, despite only being on a 1-1 match record. You can argue here or there, but I think that KP goes a long way for helping supports make their case for these rankings.
Yeah, it looks like they got to play a Seraphine game and an Emilio game, so playing some squishy champs, but it's working out. Obviously, TFF, I thought was going to be undefeated at this point. They're not. That's okay. It does look like their bot is the solid lane.
Hmm.
Granted, they have other good players, but I think Efron and Poodle, good pairing down there in the bot lane. We both had same-ish top players, regardless of how it shook out. So,
Hmm.
just good, really good stats for Poodle. So, not surprised. Also, I would say it's also partially because who is ranked number one hasn't
Hmm.
lost yet, so it's nearly going to be impossible to jump somebody that's number one spot hasn't lost, and is playing well. So, number two spot, it's almost a 1A. It's almost 1B, almost, but
Almost.
not to subtract from the consistently rated number one support.
Yeah, Triumphant, aka Mr. Fundamentals, as we call him in the Discord. So not the highest, but the second highest KDA across all supports at 7.25. Not the highest, but I believe the second highest for supports at the KP, 77%. Not the highest for vision score, but definitely super solid. And it's funny, like, I talk about the stats being like a conglomerate of all these different things and giving like an efficiency rating. So despite Triumphant not being the highest at everything, he's elite in every tier, and so the stats actually popped him out at number one, Poodle at number two. So
Nice, yeah.
kind of interesting.
And where do we have him? Yeah, even preseason Triumph was number one. So
Yeah,
if
he's been.
Triumph just keep doing what he's doing, don't see him dropping. I could see even if they lose a game, maybe you could still say because Triumphant um, is playing super well.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's carrying the bot lane. I'm not gonna say that.
Mhm.
I'm just saying supports be doing stuff. And
Keep
Triumph
doing
would be
stuff.
doing stuff. So um,
So what was your question mark or little thing
uh, I
about?
I I feel like support and maybe a lot of people, especially solo winners and whatnot, would say this about any league in any division, blah blah blah. But I do actually feel like the support role is probably the weakest role, as far as like, uh, oh, it's tough to rank the top 6, 7, 8 people because they're all so clearly at the top. It feels like support's one of the roles where like top 4 ish are kind of in
Yeah,
their own category, and then
there's not really like a big separation from great to good kind of thing.
yeah, like
Like
there's
it's
some
really like
roles that are really
Triumphant
heavy.
Poodle. Yeah, Triumphant Poodle are probably the clearest for like tier one. But then after that, it gets kind of murky. I would agree. I definitely
Yeah,
would think
there's
that.
like mid and maybe 80 carry or something. There's like the top 10 people are all super super solid. So I say that as
Yeah.
a being ranked 10th. So there's no bias there at all. So but there is the support rankings, the most important role. I think we probably just end the stream there. But
Instead,
uh,
we're gonna go to a quick ad break, and we will be back after that.
probably with 80 carry. Who knows? Put it in the chat which role you want us to do next, and I'll think about it.
I'll do a poll. How about that? Welcome back, Sentinel enjoyers. It looks like I lost the poll. Let's see.
Jungle,
There's
jungle.
Jungle.
Yeah.
Jungle 1, so we're gonna be talking about Jungle next. Sorry, I just ran up my stairs. Um Myself, CB, ready to get into it.
Yeah.
Top to bottom from last week. Wonder how fast I could do this. Latex Monkey Nuts, Infiltrate, Koi no Yoken, No Name X, Red XC, Star Burrito, comma. So there was a three-way tie at fourth between No Name, Red, and Star. Number 8, The Moisting. 9, Rich. 10, Coach Silent K. 11, Big Rev. 12, I'm Stealthy. 13, Useful Int. And 14, OSG Novakin. Tough week. Back-to-back week for Novakin.
Yeah. Maybe they just try all the roles. You think?
What was that?
Maybe they should just because they're role swapping. So this would be the last. Oh wait, no, they won't be on this list, right?
No, they won't be on this list because they were on the support this list.
Yeah.
This
So
week.
no. But same team.
Same team. Didn't get much better.
Just different name this time.
I will say Odin was very proactive in the early game. The 14 ranking purely is off of small sample size and result. Hasn't really been able to put enough tape for me or the rest of us to rate them higher, in my opinion.
Yeah, because they didn't play week 1, right?
No.
So they just played week 2, and they lost 0-2.
Mm-hmm. It was close, but they lost.
Only up from here. Will
Only up from here.
absolutely at least go up one spot next week. But
True.
yeah, just we'll blame it on the everybody gets that one warm up game week, and that was Odin's right there.
Yeah, like I said, pretty impressive, but just not enough. Number 13. Gonna be Useful Int. Didn't move.
Didn't.
Makes sense. Still hasn't really gotten the results they wanted in their win against BLM. I don't remember anything of particular to note from Useful Int in the win. It was mostly that bot lane.
I had a solid KDA. Dropped the 2-115 on a Sejuani. The lowest vision score on their team. As a support player, I hate to see that. A jungler
And
is
a
not
support
helping.
jungler, yeah. As a supportive jungler, it's kind of tough too.
Yeah,
So.
but they drop a lot of assists, so not KSing too many kills. But that was in their one win. Did eventually lose that series, so yeah, tough. Still, it's back-to-back 13s.
But at least it's not 14. Number 12. Going to be a little blip there. I'm Stealthy from CW07 in the chat. Just a tad bit better than Usolent. Same kind of results though. The difference being, if I pull up my little sheet here, looking at contingent. You could fill in this
I will say
anytime.
that stealth. I thought you were gonna do it in like a second. I had full faith in you.
No.
Stealthy, to note, did get picked up as a sub onto Braum Lives Matter. So potentially will be seen again, or maybe just full sub that never has to get used. But
Here it is.
what was started out 12th went to 13, and now back at 12th for potentially their last time on the rankings list since CE quit on us.
Yep. So Stealthy had a 72% KP on the day that CEW expired. Was pretty high up there for junglers across the board. I think No Name, Latex Monkey Nuts, and only a couple other people had higher KP. Other than that, I mean, it wasn't. He wasn't a world beater. He will be missed, but not because he was a great jungler.
Whoa.
Anyways.
Side note, thank you so much for Soup of Mario for the sub and Ayoka and Poodle for the follows. Both of y'all following after we just did support. We started with the most important role this week, which is support of, as you both know. I don't know if I have it.
I got it. I
Exactly.
got it.
Okay,
Aoka was fourth, I believe, or third.
I think third.
Yes, Lunarpar fourth, Aoka third, Poodle second.
So if y'all would have been on time, you probably would have been number one. But Triumphant
Yeah.
was here before me, so he gets to stay number one. Okay,
Number 11,
back to jungle.
back to jungle. Everybody's most hated role in solo queue. Tyler 3501. So Tyler, Maokai Merchant. Just kidding. uh I think it comes down to small sample size. Had a solid KDA. I think it was 7. Wasn't asked to do a whole lot in terms of carry from the jungle role. So bottom of the middle third right now probably will go up as more games are played. Going to be hard to crack the top 5, in my honest opinion.
Agreed. So Tyler did not play week one, but played week two.
Yeah, it was Rich. So Rich ranked ninth week 1. Tyler probably did better. Obviously got the win. Went down if you're going off of Rich's placement, but I think the two players above him had better weeks than they should in week 1, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So I mean, yeah, part of it is the sample size. I mean, Tyler played well. Of course, I there's an asterisk next to CE, even though they did play week two. Who knows
Mm-hmm.
how they were feeling about it? Um,
I think
but
he had like a 7 or an 8 KDA across both the games combined. Got a solo kill, really, decent KP. Um, the CS per minute a little low, not going to lie, 4.62. Damage per minute not there. Of course, you're not doing a ton of damage as Maokai, so anyways.
yeah, I think Tyler will climb. I think it's just you miss a week early on in the season, it just makes the rankings a little tough. Just do more.
Hmm. In a good way. You're doing fine, Tyler. I'm assuming you're going to climb just fine. Number 10. So last week, Coach Silent K 10 as well hasn't moved. Hasn't really put together the most solid showing of all the TFF members. Him and Islamic Samurai have been struggling. Um,
Yeah, they did
I'm trying to.
pull out the 2-0 win. So
They
silent.
pulled up the 2-0 win. I'm just trying to think. So I watched the VOD. By watched, I mean I like watched it at 2 times speed to like get the like gist of the big things that happened because I wasn't trying to watch the whole thing because that would be too long. I think the early game was ran by OSGA. I think Coach Silent K of the junglers, one of the lesser proactive junglers because they're playing for mid to late game team fights, but that has resulted in a lot of early objectives going the other way for these other teams. That's only off of what I saw in the VOD that I watched. I can only imagine against Plasma Wolves it was probably worse, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that's right. And you said they were 10 last week, so they stayed the same, even though they pulled out the 2-0 victory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Played a Wukong game, nothing too crazy there. Pulled out a 7-kill game on Sejuani. I don't know if that's good or bad. Most kills on your team is Sejuani, but um, it worked out. They won, so I guess maybe it's just because it's
Yeah.
not a flashy win, flashy.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be the nature of these rankings, right? Like any rankings, any sport you've ever watched, the flashier players that put up the bigger stats are probably gonna be ranked higher. So that's kind of what dinged Tyler because of the sample size and the fact that he played 2 Maokai games, right? Like between the stats ranking and then I don't know what you had, Tyler. I think you had him higher on your
9,
individual
9. Yeah,
rankings at 9.
I tried Tyler. Rice was
Yeah.
just bringing me down.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's just gonna be the nature of how things work. I it for better for worse, that's just kind of the criteria of how it goes. But that's like all things, right? Like
Yeah, I mean,
the Honda Civic is all reliable, it gets the job done. But if you put it in a car tier ranking list, the Ferrari is always going to be ranked higher just because it's doing more, if that makes sense.
okay,
I
okay.
don't have a personal vendetta or Salo, you're trying to stir stuff. I think Tyler is a cool dude. I even said that in the article. Get wrecked, scrub. Not you, Tyler. Salo.
I do think, I guess we'll see who's number 9, but I know it feels like 12, 13, 14 are in kind of a little grouping. Like 10 and 11 are pretty close, at least for right now.
Yeah.
We'll see if
I think
9
like
will be
this whole
interesting.
rule of thirds has been kind of the theme. Infiltrate, rough showing in my opinion against us and rivals. That's just being honest.
I e- expected more. I guess I don't want to say I thought we were going to lose. I thought we. I guess there's no other way to say it. I thought we might lose. Um, I thought he. I mean, he had some good games. Definitely. It's just I thought the jungle top, based on like previous weeks, the last two streams we had and whatnot, stats and everything. I thought they were just gonna run over games. So um,
So to put it in perspective, I think after week one, Infiltrate had like a 33 KDA or something. And then after our series ended up with 4.25, which is still a respectable KDA, but that big of a hit, you know, it means something went wrong somewhere. Had a couple, I think game three was probably the toughest. Um, when Rev was up like 40 CS at like 17 minutes or something. Um, but I won't say that's Infiltrate's fault. I think there wasn't just much doing for him with the comp that was drafted. Gonna see if they bounce back next week. But the stats, I think Infiltrate was number one when you took everything for stats last week, and then it dropped him down to 11. So it was just a tough week.
true. Okay. Okay. We have to talk about how we average and stuff, because I mean, stats put him at 11. I put him at 5.
Yeah, I know.
Carry the 4.
No, I know. I think it's just a fair ranking, right? Like that's kind of what we're trying to do with the way we do it. Like stats still one story, but if you're low on stats but your team is winning, you're probably going to be ranked a little bit higher. If you're high on stats but your team is losing, who really cares, kind of thing, you know?
True. True. True.
So
Yeah. He did took away a champ one of the games. I think played well in the J4. I apparently we put too much stock in being afraid of the Zach, but
according
um,
to Salo,
some people were saying. But I don't think ninth is anything to be too
middle
upset
third,
about, other than you were ranked super high to begin with. But
almost smack dab in the middle. So not that bad. Anyways, number eight,
big part. I mean big worm. I mean big red.
Big Rev. Big Rev had a bounce back performance. Game three on a Mumu looked really good. Even in the game one loss, didn't really look horrible. But really came alive games two and three. Um, so part of that is why you see Tyler at number 11, Coach Stanley K at 10, and Infiltrate at 9, because I believe Big Rev was 11 last week. Had to move up somewhere. So
True. I think they're all 4-ish in a similar-ish range. Yeah, Rev played well last series, especially the last two games.
mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously the newest member to our team, so
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we're still learning each other and whatnot, still building that chemistry. Um, and like most rivals players, to an extent, for the most part, um, willing to play what the team needs. So it's not lost on us there. So 8. Sure, you'd like to be. Everybody wants to be number 1, but he's moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Number 7, bottom of the top half, which means you're at the top of something. The moisting. So this is what's weird to me. When we do these rankings, we try to like make it weird. Moistening is a weird spot for me, and that's being the creator of these rankings. Actually moved up a spot despite losing. Was number 8, now number 7. Um, Part of that because I know you had him pretty dang low, so I will
10,
take the
10.
blame here.
I'm transparent. I'll add him at
Yeah.
10.
Stats have him at 4.
That's
So
just the trend with RAR, right? They're playing well, but just
yeah,
not winning games.
KDA, not really anything to look at. The KP is solid, 65%. The damage for him, 627 damage, good for about 21% of his team's damage overall. And then contributing solidly to the vision from the jungle role. I believe Kama is the only other jungler that has better revision stats than Moisting. So we're trying to make everything fair. Moisting's playing pretty solidly, but hasn't won, so got dinged. Ends up at number 7.
Yeah, I think if your team's 0-2 in your top half of the rankings, I mean, you can't be upset about that.
Yep.
Big chillin'.
Number 6,
Speaking of comma,
Kama. So Kama, number 2 in the stats. You can own up.
what?
You can own up to this
What
one.
the hell? I ain't gonna, I ain't gonna show it to. Uh, I, I guess because how I'm doing it, and I don't, I feel
But
like I
off
did,
of
I feel like
previous
I did
ranking.
it different. Like preseason, I had everybody ranked. Obviously, that's what we went with.
Hmm.
And then week 1, so comma started at 13. Just
And then after week 1, went up to 7. So pretty good jump.
yeah, what I didn't do was whenever I was doing week 2 rankings, and I just realized this earlier, I didn't take what we ranked people as. I went off my rankings, and so I went from my rankings to my rankings again. So
Oh.
so I realized what I did, but so I went. So comma didn't move week to week on my listing. So it's not like I moved them down. It's just I didn't
Move
do
'em up.
what we put on stream. I just used mine, so that's okay. Um, I we know they play through mid, right?
Hmm.
That seems to be like stat wise and everything. They're a very solid player.
Hmm.
Comma, of course, one of the higher ranks on their team, maybe the number 1 rank on their team as far as like solo queue rank. Um, so solid player. I just don't think I had reasons to move down the people that I had right above comma. So I think it was like
Interesting.
7 to 11 were all very similar to me.
Okay.
And since I already had them at 11, that's how it happened. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at the stats, pretty solid across the board. Kind of like the Moising. A little bit better of a KDA, 3.46, 68% KP, which when you're between like the 60 and 70 mark as a jungler is really good. 670 damage, good for 20% of his team's damage thus far. Um, and then solid vision, 1.2. Leading all junglers in the vision category. So stats had him at 2. Um, Stats don't lie, but they don't necessarily tell the whole
I
truth.
mean, looking at last week, I just didn't look like. It
Well,
didn't look like
and
they
the thing
had to.
is,
It didn't look like
the
they
thing
had
is,
to do
right?
a
Like,
lot,
so,
but
like, here, I'll give you like a real life example, right? Like, say you're Joe Schmo. Think of a like middle tier quarterback in the NFL right now. We'll go with like, I don't know, Geno Smith or something for all you. I don't know how many people know football in this chat. I'm not gonna lie, but we'll say like a middle tier quarterback goes against the worst defense of the league. His stats go up. A lot of it is hard to judge solely based on stats because, in my opinion, Division Two is weaker. You're going to put up better stats, right? So after their game against us, the story might change. But I think comma at 6 makes sense.
yeah, I think yeah. Now that you say that, I think that is another reason because they played CE, who I don't think was very good,
Hmm.
and then they played DPH.
Hmm.
So to me, they haven't played a team that's super great. at least as far as rankings and whatnot. So they played teams that haven't won a game yet. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll
I
see.
might have to eat my 11th ranking tomorrow.
Yeah, on the
Can't
chin.
bot lane. I don't know. I'll be down there.
Dak Prescott getting slandered in the chat, by the way, is crazy.
I
Number
was
five.
going to say Dak. I was gonna say Dak, yeah, but then you said middle tier, and I was like, oh, you didn't say bottom tier.
Okay, okay, okay,
Okay. As
okay.
a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I
Yeah.
guess so.
Number five, No Name X. 1-1 so far for the team of OSGS overall. Stats have him at 5. Solid jungler. Ends up at the top 5. Um, you look at the list, maybe a little bit overrated compared to like where Kama ended up. But I think right between, Kama, the Moisting having a good season despite being on a losing team, it's, you can debate all the spots that you want, but I think number 5 is pretty fair for No Name here.
Yeah, I think so too. They did play against OTLO, who in previous rankings, Latex has been at the top. So playing against one of the better junglers and having decent stats, I think is important to note. And they started kind of middle of the pack, so has moved up
Yeah.
since preseason. So I think five's
After
good.
week 1, he was part of that three-way tie for 4th,
Yep.
so didn't really move necessarily too much. But right there at number 5. Moving right along, number 4, Red XC, part of that tie for 4th, staying at number 4. TD Blessed, right there, 101. Gonna have to see, like No Name and Red XC for me is like as the teams go forward and as the competition theoretically gets harder week in and week out for those two squads, do they stay at, in the top 5? I don't know. Um, but Red XC is doing a lot for this TD Blast team. Um,
Yeah, I think I had Red
Especially around
XE.
side lanes. So
True. I think I had Red XE move up on my list. Even with, I mean, we don't have to keep talking
yeah,
about
we
it,
don't have to
but
keep. Yeah,
even with some struggles on the team in general, but they did just play against arguably the best team, and Red XE still performed pretty well.
mm-hmm.
So number 4, sitting pretty good in the top 5.
Yep. But everybody wants to know who's at the very top, and we can only get there by talking about number 3, Star Burrito. So Star was in the Sentinel chat. I asked her, "Where do you think you're gonna end up?" Didn't want to say because she doesn't want to be mean to other people. I think number 3, separating herself from LXC and No Name, the last of that three-way tie for 4th after week 1. Um,
So those 3 were the ones
plays
that were tied.
Yeah. Plays a very supportive role. Tries to kind of like that glue role, right? The non-glamorous but effective champs to really enable Nike and others to kind of take the spotlight. But Star number 3 definitely makes sense.
Yeah, no surprise there. They didn't play one of the weeks, or did they play all the weeks?
She's played every week.
Okay, they weren't
She's
the starter,
the
or isn't the
she
starter.
wasn't the listed starter. She
Mm.
is now, I think. It was supposed to be new news in Paris.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, top 5 is definitely no surprise. I makes sense that Star Burrito pulled slightly ahead of Red XC and No Name. And it does feel like their team. I mean, they need that glue piece with very good carry players on their team. So
Mhm.
whatever they're doing, it's working out. So
Yeah. Number 2, it is number 2, going to be. I mean, let's
this
be honest.
guy,
Latex no Dunk is number 1. So number 2, moving up, Koi no Yokon, from number 3 to number 2.
okay,
Gonna be tough to crack the number 1 spot unless Latex has a bad week or OTL starts to lose.
yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
see if they.
My,
Yep.
I'm gonna be 100% honest.
Okay.
My initial thoughts about Koi coming into the season was a Lilia Merchant. Um, has since proven me wrong. Could play a variety of different roles for NLE. Does a lot in the context of that squad, making the map movements work. I'm not trying to divulge too much because we've screened him a couple times, but um, if there's an engine for the team, it's Koi and Triumphant kind of working in tandem. One's the right leg, one's the left leg. I don't know which is which, but there you go. But yeah, Koi definitely number deserving of the number two spot.
Yeah, I'd agree. I 2, 3 are pretty close for me. I think 2, 3 is closer than 3, 4, 5, but um, no surprise. Like you said, it's gonna be tough to jump to number one spot. I did just look, and let me double check because I definitely looked the wrong. I was trying to see if they end up playing each other or not. And I don't
They don't
think
throughout the
they
regular
do.
season. Mm-mm.
Nope. So, I guess if you're Coy and you want to get the number one spot, you just hope that OTLO
Scream
loses.
OTLO and then tell us who won.
Yeah, screenshots in the DMs. But yeah, no surprise there. Solid player, and definitely agree. It feels like this Koi pulls a decent amount of bans and still pops off. So
Yeah, I think whenever you see Lily on somebody's OP.GG, it's always you always are tempted to ban it, especially depending on what your jungler plays. But um, NLE's kind of a tough team to draft around, so good spot for Koi. And then of course number one, Latex Monkey Nuts. You guys read the article. I referred to them as the polyurethane clad primeape,
what in
which
the hell?
you know what I'm talking about? Latex. Anyways,
I thought we got rid of that stuff. Oh, never mind.
polyurethane. Oh, okay, okay. Number one for a reason. I think number one in KD for junglers. I believe number one for KP for junglers, right there in the top half for damage, as well as contributing to vision score and averaging for a jungler is pretty impressive. 7.22 CS per minute. The most efficient jungler ends up number one.
Yeah, stayed number one on my listing as well. There's nothing glaring that would mean that we need to move Latex Monkey down. Um, as it's being said in the chat, Plasma Wolves do play OTLO eventually. So the first and third jungler on our list play each other. So we'll get to see a spicy matchup on that one here in a few weeks. But yeah,
Yeah,
much
it's gonna be
deserved
week
number one.
7. So if trends hold up, that'll be kind of a hype match. Should be two of the top teams in both divisions. So yeah, there you have it. The jungle rankings. Take your screenshot, put it in the receipts. I mean, let's be honest, chat between supports and jungles, it's pretty fair, no? I feel like it's a accurate representation of what's going on. I don't know, you guys let us know.
Obviously, we're
Uh,
right. Yeah. We're
we're
gonna
just gonna do
have
the
to.
ad break.
We're
Yeah.
gonna have to. Otherwise, it'll happen right in the middle of our next roll. So we'll attempt to go faster on the next one, but no promises. I don't know if you want to do another poll to see which one goes next, or I'll just pick. Up to you. But either way, we will be right back.
All right, so we're gonna keep this going at a little bit more of a rapid pace. Uh, Looking at the poll here, looks like middle
Mm.
has one, so
I felt like
I
last
will.
week top was everybody wanted top, and now just all the top players are just AFK today.
They're asleep. They're old. Um, so we got middle to go, and then after that we'll have either top or bottom. And then that's it. Oh no, and
Oh,
then team
teams, teams,
rankings.
teams, teams.
Yeah, team rankings. Either way. Starting off the middle tier rankings. Middle tier. At
Bottom tier, middle tier.
the bottom of yeah, middle. Anyways, confusing myself now. Brissinger, 35. We talked a little bit about him earlier in the show. Just hasn't quite put it together with the rest of OSGA. Was a non-factor in what was really a well-played series against CFF. I'm not envious of his position, just being a lower ranked player in this league, in arguably the most important role, one of the most important roles, depending on how you look at League of Legends. But Brissinger was 14th last week, and I don't really have much more to say after that.
Yeah, I think similar to like rank number one on roles. It's kind of similar. If you're 14th, you either have to have somebody just completely int it, or your team kind of needs to like win for you to move up. Not exactly like first seed, but it's a little bit easier. Did have a jungle change, so maybe you could point some of it to just the team is changing in general. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Up
well,
from
the
here.
constant has been Persinger has not played well. So either way you look at it, the 14th ranking, it is what it is. I hope they're just using this as an opportunity to learn, improve. Number 13. Oh, we totally forgot to go over last week's rankings.
I
Is it
think you
even worth it at
just
this
I think you
point?
say it as we do it because we kind of allude to it. You could just say what they were.
Oh, we'll just talk about what they were. So check your minimap was tied for 10th, three-way tie, dropping down to 13, despite picking up a win against BLM.
No.
I think
Oh, a game
like
win,
a
not a match
game
win.
win, not a match win. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
correct. Um, in the win, didn't like the pop off was bot lane. I don't know if they looked impressive or not. Can't remember off the top of my head. Can't recall.
The game
CB,
that
that
they
might be your job.
won, DPH had some players that look solid, like Rico and never knows best in the
Mm-hmm.
bot lane. Not to say the rest of the team didn't have solid stats, but even the game they won, they had like check your mini map had worse stats than the opposing team. Granted, they were going against one of the better mid laners in the league in Jack and
Mm-hmm.
Rich, so just kind of a tough spot. But yeah, moving down 3 spots after at least taking a game kind of feels bad.
Part of it is because, and we'll get to this as you continue on, so you can go on to 12. Um, some of the players that were ranked below check your minimap actually ended up performing relatively well this next week. One of those players was not Millie Bobby Brown, probably on par with check your map. Both of them dropped the same amount of spots. So while check your minimap was tied for 10th, Millie Bobby Brown was actually ninth. And then the O2 lost to, once again, one of the better mid laners in Veracity and Limestone. Um, you lose, you go down. If you don't perform, you go down. And so for both Millie Bobby Brown and Check Your Minimap, um, that's why you see them at 12 and 13.
Yeah, it feels like these three are, and maybe there's one or two more. I have to check. I
Yeah,
know
well,
mid lane is one of the more stacked roles.
Singer's rubbing his hands together because he's not going to be 14th next week.
Somebody has to
Millie
be
Bobby
13th though.
Brown, 0-7 to CEW. This could be the last time you see players from CEW on the power rankings. Number 11, Mundo Man. So Mundo Man is someone who separated themselves from Check Your Minimap, was tied for 10th, um, didn't move up, went down to 11, but separated themselves from DP's Check Your Minimap. Mundo Man, I think when I was doing my article was the one that I said probably needed to improve um in their loss or was up for the running. I don't exactly remember. I just remember that wasn't anything particularly that stood out from Mundo Man. I think had middling stats. I don't know if he had a positive KDA. Or
One of the games did break out the Mbessa.
yeah. But other than that, just didn't do a lot for his team. So, number 11 for Mundo Man.
Yeah, I will say Sub Zero is one of the teams I continue to have a question mark around. It feels like they're a decent team with some solid players, but
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe just the nature of the schedule, and they'll bounce back. Um, and we'll see if Mundo Man can climb it. Don't really see the Mbessa mid
Oh,
that much.
clarity. Mundo Man probably got a bump in the rankings because their team is 101 and not 0-2. Stats have them at 13th. So, um, you're just gonna need more from Mundo Man in the mid if OSGS wants to. I wouldn't say turn their season around, but continue to improve is
Mhm.
what we'll call it. Number 10, Riven. Um,
Be nice.
I am gonna be nice. I don't think I've been mean. I hope Riven doesn't think I've been mean.
I'm just
Riven
kidding.
was 13th after week one, I will
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Stats have been a 10, I think. Let me double check actually. I say that and then it sounds wrong all of a sudden. You know, but stats have been 10. Uh, I'm just waiting for Riven to pop off, and I think it'll be next week against Bressinger. Um, just
That's fair.
TDB has been solid despite shortcomings from their mid laner. Um, Somebody in this call had Riven ranked pretty low, actually.
Top
Um,
14.
yeah, top 14, for sure.
I
It's
had
just
Riven 13. I'll admit it. I'll admit it.
it's 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 tough because like if you're on a bad team but you're playing well, that's like that good recognition. Like, oh man, like despite our team being bad, like I'm doing pretty well as an individual. Ravens is like the opposite right now. Where TEB, they're not the best team, but they're pretty good. But Riven, if you look at the team overall, is kind of like the sore spot or like the sore thumb sticking out for them. Which plenty of time in the season to get it right. Um, I just think part of it's like this bias of like, oh, Riven thought we rated him too low. But so far, our initial rankings have kind of been dead on for where Riven is.
Yeah, I will say play 2 games, and if you're one of 2 teams that have had to play PLW in your first 2 weeks, I feel like they kind of get the short end of the stick. So they just played PLW. Granted, it looks like I just realized this game 2 was a 51-minute banger.
Yeah.
Um, and so it could have. I mean, I feel like if you pull out that game, you have a decent decent chance momentum wise going in to game 3. I also don't know if it's just the windscreens, but it doesn't show 2 bans on both of the games. So I don't know if they lost bans, like being late or something. Um, don't know how much that plays into individual player rankings, but it's got to mean something.
Burrito, if you're here, can you clarify?
Um, I don't know.
Or Nike?
I don't I don't love to see a Nico Tilia in competitive. I mean, there's some champion bias there.
I
But
think,
did play against
yeah,
another good mid laner this week, so that's one of the reasons.
yeah, that's true. I think those two particular picks, you need a draft around them. Like so for like Talia, when Talia was prevalent in the meta, you have like a Vi or something that's like really easy for the Talia to get the knock up and do a bunch of damage. I don't know. I don't remember what they were playing in the jungle, in the Talia game, but either way,
Volibear.
Riven's not having the best of seasons, but also not having the worst. So 10, I think is deserved, despite maybe not loving where they are placed. Number 9, Stink Pickle. Stink Pickle had Aurora had a very topsy-turvy 3-game series. I think game 1 they won. They played a Diana Yasuo comp and they won even though the Diana Yasuo, the core of the comp, played like absolute butt cheeks. Um,
Okay, okay.
so it's Stink Pickle at number 9. I think the highs have been higher than Riven. The lows might have been lower than Riven, especially that Yasuo game. But Roar's just got to figure it out. I think, in my article, I talked about how they just need to draft something that's standard because it's a Doki special, just drafting random stuff. It probably needs to stop until they can figure out how to win games. I don't want to see the Diana Yasuo again. Um, I think Sting Pickle could be upper half, like the 5, 6, 7 slot. Um, but until Roar can put it together, they're going to be hurt overall.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Sneak Peek was high last week, or maybe it's just my rankings. I don't remember, but um, was high. Wasn't going to be the starter
Number
that
4
has
last
played.
week.
So quite a drop.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they played against NLE and Soul Ram
Mm-hmm.
popped off,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of there's kind of a comparison there. You also have had 6 games, so I don't know how detrimental that is as far as stats go. I mean, more games, you're better
It's
chance
usually
of
the
evening out,
averages.
right?
Yeah, even out averages.
Um, so I don't know. Go ahead.
Stats weren't high. I had him at 9, so
Okay. Okay.
about on par.
Uh,
I think you had him pretty close to 9 as well. So I think for the most part, I think Stick Pickle is rated pretty fairly. It's just, you're playing mid. The biggest thing for me is like you play Diana Yasuo comp, and that's like the bulk of your comp. Like you're trying to
yeah.
play through mid and you don't perform, it's tough.
I'll say like 1 through 9 for mid was the toughest to rank. It's just all of them were tough.
Number 8, as part of that 1 through 9, is Chromalone. Now I will say Chromalone has done a pretty good job of of in tandem with Efron and Poodle, carrying this TFF squad to a victory against OSGA. Stats had him at 7. Um, I think
Okay. Okay.
probably
Had him at
dinged
7 also. Yeah.
a little bit, just because of some of these placements you'll see from the mid laners before. I agree, this middle third is pretty hard to rank. Cromalone's doing a lot to help his team win games. It's not flashy, it's effective. Like 21% of his team's damage, 62% KP. Gets it dinged a little bit. Or I'm looking at the wrong person. Excuse me.
They play.
69% KB, 26% of his team's damage. It's just, it's not elite, but it's not poor.
Yep. It maybe it feels like as of right now, Efron is the one popping off more. So maybe it's a little bit of just looking at it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, but they are both. I mean, last week TFF versus OSGA. I mean, Chrome Alone played really well.
Hmm.
So I do think a lot of it is just the top 7 all also played very well.
Hmm.
Or were already ranked pretty high, and so it's just a matter of you have to play super well if you're in mid
You gotta
lane because
separate
it's so
yourself.
stacked. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta separate
So like
yourself.
8, 8, 9 for mid ranking feels like it's like 4, 5, 6 in other roles, just because
Yeah.
mid's so
And,
stacked.
and that applies to the bottom tier as well. So when we were doing, we got rid of ties, but the way we were doing it, check your mini map. Melly Bobby Brown, Mundo Man, and Riven would have all been tied as
Mm.
well. So there's just not a lot of separation between like the middle tier of the mid lane rankings or the bottom tier. So number 7, Corrupt. Corrupt was tied for 6. So you can say that he dropped 1 or 2 spots depending how you look at it. But um, I said earlier on that OTLO's solo lanes haven't been particularly impressive in my eyes. I will say, um, Corrupt was 4 in the stats ranking side of things.
How come every
Um,
time you gotta be blaming me for shit?
I'm not blaming
You
you.
blaming me for
Solo
shit.
kills are good. So here's what, like, fully transparent, the qualm that I have with OTLO is you look at the team. Aspect of Noxus to it until this coming week has been the starting top winner, 36% KP. Corrupt playing in the middle of the map, a role that you think can really get involved in what your team is doing, 42% KP, um, while still doing 27% of his team's damage. So he's doing a ton of damage for this team. He's not at team fights, and it's concerning to me as an outsider looking in. Um, Solid player. It's just he's not getting involved. It's all latex monkey nuts from what I can tell.
which
Um,
is working out for them now. Obviously, they're 2-0.
yep.
But they played No Veracity, who we can say had a bad week one, and
Hmm.
then they played OSG Sub Zero, who don't know if they're good or not still. Um, but yeah, there was a game where it was like 20 something kills for their team, and he had 0 assists, 6 kills.
Hmm.
That's kind of tough. But also maybe I have internal hate for seeing an Aurelia, so maybe that's why I also ranked him low.
Yeah, like I just think if they're playing 1-3-1, which if you look at the stats, that's what it is, then I mean, more power to them. It's just a hard style to play consistently week in and week out. I just would like to see Corrupt involved a little bit more in what they're doing. So number 6 going to be, we're pausing
The
for
sub,
dramatic effect.
the sub.
Oh, this Bixus. So I think you had Bixus and Red Sharky kind of,
I had a
they were
mess.
both the same player in your eyes,
Yeah,
despite being different people.
it was tough, but I was like, they're kind of would be ranked similar-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I didn't know which one we were gonna use, so either way, yeah, I had them slightly higher, but
Mm-hmm.
same-ish tier.
Yeah, stats had him right in the middle for a sub. Not a bad place to be. Um, Played really safe into Sailor's aggression. Had a really good Syndra game in one of their losses. Uh, Laning wasn't anything that I found particularly strong for this player. But they, unlike Corrupt on this list, um, made their presence felt in team fights. Contributed to the vision score as well, and played a little bit more of a team centric role. So that's why you see him at 6, one spot ahead of Corrupt.
Yeah, and I believe they'll go back to sub. Moving forward, we'll see if Sharky takes any more
Yeah, Sharky.
vacations, letting the team down. How dare you? No. But Bix is popping off on the Syndra, so it just took us a couple games to figure out what we wanted to do.
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely a solid Syndra player and HP mid laner in general, regardless of who it is, top half of the board.
Top 5, what everybody is curious to know at number 5, going to be, believe, I
Limestone.
Limestone. Yes, Limestone. So Limestone was tied for 6 despite losing in the first week against OTLO. Was actually tied with Corrupt. Has since separated themselves. 2 really good showing on Rise after game 1. Curious that CEW didn't ban the Rise, but regardless, you can't ding somebody for playing well on the same champion if it's given to him. And so Limestone, one of the players I was excited to see coming into the season, still waiting on a pocket pick from them, but um, quickly becoming you know, one of the elite tier mid laners here for Sentinel.
Yeah, and they pulled at least 2 bans, and still played really well this week.
Hmm.
I'll still kind of put an asterisk next to it. They did play CE, who I think was already kind of falling apart, is my guess. Um, but solid player. We thought that coming in the week one, we kind of thought was we're gonna kind of
A
overlook
little
that.
fluky.
Um, so yeah, solid showing. I did have them a little bit lower, but I think it's partially because they had a weaker opponent week two and not the best showing week one. But would definitely agree is a top half mid laner and top 5, no surprise.
Hmm. Doing a lot for his team. Number 4 going to be Soul Ram from NLE. So Soul Ram, a player quickly rising up the ranks, tied for 10th after week 1. Um, had a what do they call it? Like a coming alive party, coming out party against Roar, able to get the advantage. Had a good Hui game. I think only died once or something. Um,
Yeah, twice.
uh,
5-2-10.
Twice. And then the the second win as well looked really good, and even in the loss, looked really solid. Solram, if we say triumphant and Koi are like the legs that make NLE go, Solram, Ferdy, and Diet Coke are kind of like the rest of that where um, they are filling in their roles very well and they're doing what their team is asking of them to do to win games.
They're the three
That
toes.
might yeah, they're the three toes. We'll say like the torso and two arms. They're just like a headless monster running through Sentinel. Um, but they're what they do from week to week might differ depending on what NLE is trying to accomplish that week. And I think SolarM um, stepping up on some of these mages for NLE, that was good to see.
Yeah, I think Solram's really consistent. And you might even be that Solram potential. We'll see. Obviously, only 2 weeks in, played their worst week against us, and then now. I mean, not to
Hmm.
say they played bad week 1, but solid week 1, and then a very solid week 2 against our team that I still have hope for is a good team. Um, so no surprise, cracking the top 5. We'll see if they can keep that trend going. I don't know if you said what they were last week.
They were tied for 10th. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could say that's in the going in the right direction.
Hmm. For sure. I mean, really, really solid showing for them. Jumping a couple people on this list. Silent Assassin for Plasma was at number 3, was number 2 last week. Has since moved down a little bit. Um, I mean, super solid player. I think you had them at number 1 on your list.
I did. It was, I mean, yeah, it was tough. I think the top 3 were super tough. I went back and forth with. So who ends up where the top 3, I think is just kind of all the same, being only 2 weeks in. But yeah, one of, if not the best teams, and a very solid player. And they played against a good team. I know, slight harping on Riven, and that's who Silent Assassin went against this week.
Mm-hmm.
See the spicy Zoe pick. Don't see that a ton. And Ari, which we've seen a decent amount. So, but yeah, just
All right, well,
solid player. It's tough for them to drop if they're going to win all of their games.
so Silent Assassin's at 3. We said there was going to be no tiebreakers for these rankings, or there were going to be tiebreakers, so there would be no ties. I believe it would have been tied with number 2 on this list. Um, Silent Assassin being so high, despite being on the same team as Nike Dragon, is saying a lot because uh, Nike Dragon is doing 35% of his team's damage right now. Silent Assassin's doing 21%. So like you're kind of like the spotlight is being kind of shoveled towards Nike. Um, Silent Assassin's still stepping up and separating themselves from the rest of these mids on this list, is really good to see. So I think PLW, in terms of the carry positions, if you consider those mid and ADC are in good hands right now.
Some people say it's sport.
So people may say it's support Aoka with the I don't even know what that is. Either way, Salo was preseason number 1, fell a little bit after week 1, came back and to number 2 week 2, was number 2 in the stats as well. Doing a lot for this rivals team, 30% of the team's damage right now. Good stats across the board. Over aggressive at times. But uh, you know, top 3 for sure.
Yeah, it's weird. I had him ranked at 13th, so it's just kind of weird that he ended up number 2. No, obviously.
Didn't have it ranked at 13th, but
No, I expect week 1. Where was he at? 4, 5, 6.
after week 1, he ended up at 5.
I expect that he won't ever drop that low or lower. I think he will stay top 4. I
You
hold him.
better
I
hope.
hold him to the standard of top 2, and not 2. No, top top 2, big chillin'. He played 80 carry for us last split, so just as far as a team overall wise, I guess we can say this again about most of the rivals players other than me. I'm stuck support for forever, but learning the chemistry part as far as a team, obviously is a super solid player, and I expect him, hopefully for him to jump to number one after this week because as we can see, who's going to be number one, last but not least, is going to be Drakenrich and Salo. Drakenrich play against each other tomorrow night.
Yeah, Drakenrich, however you want to say it. Somebody give me the phonetic pronunciation. Drakenrich, really, really good player. Even in the teams lost against DPH, you could say he was the best player on the Rift. Um, right there with DP Rico, who was popping off. Um, don't want to say too much because we're about to play him. But I expect as BLM starts to play more and more teams, they're really gonna hone in on Drakenrich, try to make him uncomfortable. But super solid player, number one in the stats. Um, definitely knows how to play the mid lane position.
Yeah, it'll be like you said. I don't want to slip up and say nothing too crazy since we do play him. Just a super exciting matchup to see in the mid lane tomorrow night for the 1 and 2, and I would expect the winner. Um, I guess it's not directly definitive, but I assume whichever team wins will probably jump to the number one spot, um, unless they both
Yeah,
hard run it down and
most.
Silent Assassin's team wins. So yeah, I know it'll be interesting to see how teams tackle it going into the game.
So there you have the mid lane list. Lasting on Drakenrich, doing 34% of his team's damage, so not quite Nike's 35. But doing it from the mid lane, when you don't have a support to hold your hand, pretty impressive. There's the middle. We only
I
have two roles left. Are you just gonna decide for them?
Yeah, because they tied in the voting. It
Okay.
might get a little scuffed. We might have to kind of stop halfway through. Um, I, I'm saying I'm pretty confident we'll stop halfway through, but I don't just want to throw it to a break after every single one. Because it's starting to get
Yeah, it
late.
gets
So we'll
boring.
just
Yeah, we'll
we'll
speedrun this.
we'll slide it over to. We haven't done top, right?
We haven't done top, so we'll do top lane. Uh, I will. Oh, never mind. We're just jumping straight into it. I was gonna go through the
Yeah,
last
let's get it.
week's list, but Angry, number 14 in last week's spot. Number 14 once again. Um, had some words of encouragement for Angry. I think it's time to put away the Yone and put away some of these carry top laners because he's just not carrying with those champions. Uh,
Okay, that's something. I mean, they Angry did decently solid on the Gwen. That's the one game they won.
and
But
then
yeah,
you were like, well,
Yoan
oh
not
wait,
looking.
no,
Yoan
on
wasn't
Yone,
looking too
right?
hot. Yoan wasn't
Or
looking too
oh
hot.
eight and
But
1 or something.
yeah, I mean, you're already ranked 13th or 14th, and you lose, and you have a game where you go 0-6-0 and 0-2-0. Yeah, it's kind of tough. Expected to go to 14th.
So number 13, last week was Feldroth, who was subbing in for an OSG team. This week is Islamic Samurai. Full transparency, Islamic Samurai was last in the stats ranking, getting a little bit of a bump being on TFF, mayhaps.
Okay, yeah.
But
I I
uh
was thinking you were gonna be like, Islamic Samurai is actually fourth in stats.
no, no,
CV? How
no.
dare you?
Islamic Samurai is not playing well this split.
Okay, I was just one of the players I remember offhand that I'm surprised at. I thought they would stay in the top half. And their team's not playing crazy bad, so I don't know. Hate to see it at 13.
Team's not Islamic Samurai. To put it in perspective, Matrix, the top laner he went against, had a lot of success on the Yone in game one, and got the better of their matchup. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. In game two, I think Matrix was 5-0 at one point against Islamic. So the laning phase for Islamic Samurai is really tough. Um, and top lane is almost all laning phase. So you're going to be at the bottom of the list probably. So gonna see if he has some kinks to work out, but until then, probably near the bottom. Let's move right along to number 12. Tiny Fist of Fury. Um, Stats had him in the bottom half. It's the Drakenridge show for BLM. We talked
Yeah.
about it when we talked about supports and bottom laners. If you're not asked to do a lot, you're not going to be very high on the list. Um, Obviously doing enough for his team to get win for their team to get wins, but um, just hard to put them ahead of some of these other top laners.
Yeah, mostly tank duty. It's looking like. Did pull out 2 Galio games. Do we give
Mm-hmm.
him Galio? Do we not tomorrow? Who knows? Yeah, it is interesting seeing their mid laner number 1 spot and then seeing their other solo laner so far down, but winning games. So that's the most important part. It's just the stats top lane. You don't really need to have great stats if your other carries are popping off.
Yep. Number 11 going to be. I have these in front of me and I just don't ever read them. Wait for you to do it. Reverse from Hydro Pump Black Tip. Reverse had a very, very good game against us on Mordekaiser game one. It kind of fizzled out as the series went on. Uh, you know,
Oh yeah, we gave him the Singe and the Mundo. I
yeah.
I think it's a
No, not the
similar.
Mundo. The Mordekaiser game one was
Yeah, no,
great.
no, I know. But after that, we
Oh yeah, yeah.
realized how to play against HP. I mean,
Realized,
we're one of those
realized.
team. We're one of those teams that we need a game 1 to learn some things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think reverse is kind of in a similar discussion of what we talked about with infiltrate. Um, we had them both super high on our lists, and we played them in game 1. We were like, "Yep, that makes sense. It's tracking." And then we learned some things and pulled it out in the end. So reverse fell, I assume.
Yeah, from number 5 to number 11.
Okay.
So it was a tough showing. I think when you looked at HPB's biggest fallers, their jungler and the top, it made sense with how the series went. Um, so outside of the Mordekaiser performance, wasn't a non-factor on Singe, but wasn't carrying, and then uh, they just kind of rolled over as a collective unit in game three. Number 10, Matrix, who we talked about going against Islamic Samurai, getting the better of him in lane. Ultimately was not enough to win the game. But I was impressed with what I saw from the actual tape, not just looking at stats, but how he actually played. Did a lot. OSGA, both games got 6 grubs, and a big part of that was how Matrix was playing these games in the early laning phase.
Yeah, I think even when I was ranking people, it's one of the players that I kind of overlooked. And then I was like, oh, definitely can't put them too low because they are performing. So
Mm-hmm.
I had him at 9, so 9-10 feels right. And this is
A.
OSGAS.
Mm-hmm. OSGA.
So probably one of, if not the highest one from their team. So
Yes,
that's good. Good. Hang your hat on that, I guess.
that is good. Number 9, someone we know, I think.
Who the f-
I
is
say
this
that.
guy?
Death Knight. So with reverse popping off in game one, you would think Death Knight had a really bad game one. Honestly, um, didn't have a great game, but didn't have a bad game. Was solid in the game one loss. Games 2 and 3 started to do a bit better. Um, DK is not a guy that plays this game religiously, and for him to be in the middle of the pack right here, I think is a good spot for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the lowest rank players,
Mm-hmm.
especially for top lane. So being up in the single digits is good, and I believe he was probably lower, probably in the double digit, 10th
11th
or 11th
last
last week.
week. Yeah.
So and arguably played a very heavy hand in us winning the game 2 that we almost lost to HP.
Hmm.
So moving in the right direction. I expect top 7 after tomorrow.
There you go. Number 8, the top of the bottom half. Who's it gonna be? It's Aspect of Noxus was number 8 last week. 8 once again. We kind of went over this when we covered Corrupt. Just not getting involved despite his team successes. Um, I don't know. As a top laner, not the end of the world. I feel like he's doing fine in lane. He's doing good in damage. He's just not getting involved in these team fights, which to this point hasn't been a detriment for the team. Don't think
I
we're going to see him again going forward because their regular
yeah.
top laner
He's
scheduled to start.
supposed to play game one tomorrow. I
Okay.
don't know the reasoning, but supposed to play game one, and then it looks like their starting top laner will either be back or for whatever reason will be playing games 2 and 3. So who knows if it's the last game we see Aspect or not. But stayed in the top, what, 8, 9
Yep.
for 3 rankings, despite being a sub. So
Good stuff. The bottom of the top half at number 7 is going to be RH Cheese. So a bright spot for OSGS. RH Cheese was third in the stats category of how we do
oh
these things,
oh
which
I see.
it's surprising. KDA is not great. Has a decent amount of solo kills, which is always good to see on a top laner. KP's not over the top, but for this team, RHGs and Mundo Men doing the bulk of um their damage. 24% for RHGs, 23% for Mundo Men. Good CS per minute, good gold. Gold's a big one. When I was looking at top laners, some of them struggle in terms of their gold efficiency. He's at the top half for sure. And how much gold he's able to accrue. So,
So you're
good stuff.
blaming me. That's what I'm hearing. Okay. Now I had him ranked a little lower. Uh, I don't think he had a terrible showing in their loss. Um, but it didn't look like they did anything too crazy.
Um,
And they played against
to your
Aspect of
credit,
Noxus.
I was surprised to see RH. I thought my thing had bugged, but it turns out he's actually just very solid top laner, just not flashy.
Okay, and this might be one of the victims of I use my week 1 rankings as my template for week 2 rather than what we ranked them. So started lower to begin with on my list,
Did
but
move up though. He was 9 last week.
well, there you go. There you go. So Sub Zero, I yeah has some bright spots, and we'll see if they can keep climbing. They just played a good team in OTLO, so going up spots after a loss is good to see. And Salo, we don't need to get into that. We don't get into no hard feelings.
Yeah, no hard feelings. Uh, number 6,
This guy,
Prussian. The downfall
the final
of
domino,
CEW. Yeah, in my opinion,
or
that's
first
my
domino.
running conspiracy theory. Really solid player. Fourth in stats. Just doesn't get involved in his team's success. 41% KP, not great. Tons of damage. I think he was the highest damage per minute top laner, or one of the highest. 23% of his team's damage. Had really good CS per minute, almost 8. Um, of the people to have potentially found a new home would have been Prussian, but did rank out. So there you go.
Yeah, won't see them back in Sentinel. I don't know if they ranked out just E3, to where they could potentially be like eligible next split type thing, but climbing that high this early, we'll see if they end up in Diamond. But yeah, it leaves open a lot of people to move up in the top half of the rankings.
Speaking of moving up, we go on to the top 5 of the top lane rankings. Feathers. So once again, Feathers had a really rough showing on lane. Not gonna sugarcoat it. Got out damaged by his Poppy support.
What the hell?
Um, went 0-4. But despite that, his highs have been really high. So I think about number 5, a very stable top laner that's been Feather's calling card for basically as long as I've been playing League and Feathers have been playing comp. Doesn't really get involved in his team's kills, which maybe that's where they're struggling a little bit. Trying to incorporate Feathers. But does 21% of their team's damage. CS is really well. Does good vision, gets good gold. Um, so
Yeah, NLE gave him his Alawi game one. They banned the Malphite. Um, gave him the Alawi, so and Alawi did the most damage in the game.
yep, had a really good Alawi game. So I don't know. Feathers, even in his highs and lows, they balance out to be kind of in the middle, and that's where Feathers kind of lies, right there at number 5. So
Um,
we'll have to see if this ranking holds. I think if Roar starts winning, I think it's going to be because Feathers starts to get a little bit more involved in their team fights. But if they don't, I expect Feathers to fall. So it's really kind of like, let's see where Feathers goes. Um,
yeah,
but at
and
number 4,
their team being
oh
0-2 and still being a top 5 player, it's
yeah,
pretty rare for our rankings, I think.
yeah, yes indeed. So Complex coming off a loss was number 1, dropped down into number 4. So not a very far fall. For the TDB top laner. 68% of his KP. So of the top laners, I think the highest in terms of getting involved in these team fights and being proactive with, I can assume TPs and stuff like that. The CS per minute took a dip compared to what he had in week one. Um, 5.17 KDA though, I think is tops among top laners or close to.
Hmm.
And just starting to separate himself from the middle of the pack into this upper echelon.
Yeah, it looks like playing more supportive or just tanky, at least against PLW. Uh, pulled out the Shin and Orn, and of course playing against PLW. Um, most players that have played against them are dropping a couple spots, of course. So still being in the top 4 after a 0-2 loss is nothing to scoff at. So I assume Complex will stay in the top 6. The whole split is my guess.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Doesn't get easier, but I expect Complex to play well regardless. Diet Coke rising up the rankings was number 7 after week 1. I had a little bit of a tough game into Death Knight's Urgot, but had a very solid week here in week 2. Um, so
Against Rar, yes, they did go They went to 3 games, broke out the Cho'Gath, Mordekaiser, and a spicy little Yorick action game 3.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely made his presence felt. Didn't really get the Ornn going, despite it being Feathers, one of Feathers' top champions. Definitely had an answer for it. Solid stats across the board. And I think our biggest riser for top lane.
yeah, I don't know where they initially started, but you said climbed up pretty far from what, 7 or 9 or whatever you said.
Yeah, 7-3.
So okay, top 3, no pressure. All you got to do is stay there.
All you gotta do is stay there. Number 2, chat's debating on whether it's UB Awesome or Neptune's Rises. There's your answer. Number 2 is UB Awesome. Uh, Stats have him at number 1. So it was basically a coin flip between UB Awesome and Neptune. Stats
Yeah,
had him at 1. I think CB put Neptune at 1.
yeah. I think
Um,
that was one of the few that I actually changed like 2 or 3 times. So it was like I'd rank them, and then whoever I looked at last, and I was like, maybe they should be 1. So I went back and forth on this one. So I think 1 and 2 are really 1A, 2A, two,
hmm
1B, 1A. But yeah, very close. So
Was
uh,
very close. I think the deciding factor is probably team success. Hard to rank. If it's a tie,
that's true.
a top laner that's undefeated or a top laner that's 1-1, you tend to go with the undefeated top laner. But talking about UB Awesome here at number 2, solid KDA, good damage for Um, the top laner Veracity. Uh, to this point, 31% of his team's damage. I will say, probably a little bit less if you factor in how Tyler played in week one. But regardless, 7.6 CS per minute. Um, right up there for gold efficiency. Okay, and number one. We're running up to an ad. Let's finish this.
Yeah,
Hurry,
we got
hurry, hurry.
full 50 seconds.
We got a whole 50 seconds. Neptune rises. Uh, isn't flashy, but does a lot of damage and sets his team up for success. Really solid on the top lane, doing what is asked of them to enable Silent Assassin and Nike Dragon to be the players that they are. Any other thoughts for Neptune Rises here from CB? You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, played against Complex, who's also a top 5 top laner in our opinion. So to still do super well. Of course, being on what I think is the best team right now. You're going to stay at 1 if you keep winning. So no surprise there. I do still think it's kind of a 1A, 1B situation, but much deserved to Neptune Rises at number 1.
There you have it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the last of the power rankings for players, and then it's teams.
Yep, 80 carry, then teams.
Welcome back, everybody. Um, Producer was in my ear saying to get ready. I was not. We're gonna go over what 80 carries was left.
Bottom lane, remember?
Bottom lane, yeah, they don't play 80 carries anymore.
Yeah, no matter,
Whatever.
no matter.
Bottom lane rankings and the team rankings. We're gonna do it in one go before ads come. So we're gonna make it quick. Let's
There we
get
go.
into it.
Bottom.
Bottom of the bottom lane rankings. Number 14. Darcy's had a decent showing against TFF. Was able to get first blood, like I said. What's holding OSGA back collectively as a team? When you have a KDA as a team less than one, it's gonna be tough to climb these rankings. Um, Zarcy's when the going gets tough seems to get picked out a lot. Whether it's a positioning issue or a team fight issue, I don't know, but dies a lot for an 80 carry, and so somebody's got to be at the bottom.
Yeah,
And with the way OCA is going, it's going to be Zarcy's.
just an unfortunate trend for a lot of their players. Once you make it to the bottom, if your team loses games, it's tough to climb up. I think they had their top laner, Matrix was high up on the list, but everyone else is seemingly towards the bottom. I just looked at their schedule. They've played two solid teams, but I don't know. Just kind of do more? Question mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think TD Bless, we talked about in the preview, will be a good kind of test for where these guys are actually at. 07's in the chat, last member of CEW Iron Sniper, coming in at 13. Don't want to talk about them too much because they're not in the league, so we will move on
Quitters.
to number 12.
Quitters.
Gonna be DP Rico. We talked about his pop-off game.
Yeah.
Game 2 last week. But other than that, has been a tough going for DP Rico, number 12. I don't think, other than that one game, there's enough to really move him up any further on the list.
No, the other two games weren't close, and so with that, your 80 carry stats aren't going to be the best. I guess they had 2 of their 4 kills in one of the games, but yeah, they had the one pop-off game. It's enough to keep them out of the bottom 2, but not much more than that.
Yeah, so DP Rico has not moved since week 1. Zarcy's has not either. Iron Sniper was tied for 10th and is now 13th. Number 11, Cradle is moving on up the list, was 13th after a very, very rough showing in week 1 that everyone wants us to forget. But here are rivals. We're like elephants. We never forget. I will say it did have a really nice bounce back performance in week 2. Like taking all the stats into consideration, the week 1 really good at ding Cradles, kind of like CB. Gonna be tough, but not impossible to climb the list, and so far has moved up 2 spots.
Yeah, and I also think people kind of right above them played well, and the people towards the top, some of them towards the top of the list didn't have the best game, so it's just kind of a weird spot to be in, being at 13, but moving in the right direction just slowly.
Moving in the right direction, indeed. Number 10, Stoic was number 8 last week. Got dinged a little bit because of that showing against Rico in game 2. Didn't move much, just down 2 spots. So I don't know. Seems fair. We're talking about the thirds here, kind of, between tiers 2 and 3 for Stoic. It's a pretty good place to be. Doesn't really have to do too much with Drock and Rich on his team. And he's doing enough for a lower ranked player in Sentinel.
Yeah, and we'll get to see firsthand tomorrow. Didn't look like I guess they played well. At least one of the games, 2 of the games did well. Of course, the game they lost didn't do anything special, but enough to be top 10. So we'll see more tomorrow.
We will see indeed. Number 9.
Macho Man
Dun,
Randy.
dun. Macho Man falling from number 7 last week. Um, Probably the biggest hit for a RAR player came to Macho Man. Um,
I
you
think if
know,
they didn't have the kind of pop off game on Swain, they probably would have fallen further.
mhm.
Um, but had a really good showing game one on the Swain, which is the game that they won.
Yeah, I mean, a really good CS per minute, really good gold efficiency. It's not being turned into like good damage numbers for a bottom laner. It is, you did play Swain, but you played well on it. So, all things considered, right there, kind of towards the middle for Macho. Definitely a fair ranking in my eyes. Number 8.
It's gonna be.
Hey, we know that guy.
I've seen that guy.
Birdie. We've seen him. So moves up one spot, was number 9 in week 1. Here's what I will say about Ferdy. What he does for his team will not translate to good power ranking stats, if that makes sense. He's asked to kind of spend a lot of time on a bot lane island as triumphant goes and contest objectives and sets up his team and stuff like that. So far, nobody's really punished him too much for that style of play. It will be interesting to see if anybody does. After that early phase, Ferdy comes along in the mid to late game team fights. Um, but he, it's just the style that NLE is playing. It's not going to make Ferdy really shine when it comes to these rankings.
Yeah, and I think he's, a good enough player to where they don't have to hard play through Ferdy, which is, I think, what we initially thought they were going to do
Yeah.
every week.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure I don't say anything too crazy. Uh, this might be some support bias, but I'm going to say Triumph would be the bot lane carry. That's all I'm going to say. He'll be putting in some OT down there. But Ferdy, I don't. You said he moved up 1 or 2 spots, right? So
He moved up a spot, yeah, from
So
number 9
I
last
think
week.
we'll probably stay in the middle of the pack, and it's not because not really a top tier AD carry. It's just because how at least I've seen them playing their games recently. Might change week to week, but doing enough to get wins, and that's all that really
Well, and
matters.
and he's really like just floated around. I think we had him to 7 in the initial rankings, and so for the playstyle that they're doing and what is being asked of Ferdy, like I think we'll, we'll probably see him max out around the 6 or 5, but isn't asked to 1v9 games. Um, and as an 80 carrier, that's kind of a blessing, right? Because it's a lot of stress to try to do that. So
Yeah, I will say they probably
bottom.
could.
Oh,
They probably can play that way. They're holding it. They're holding it till they need it.
mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't know. But it's something good that they have in their back pocket that
Yeah,
they haven't had to do every week.
just hasn't been like I said, hasn't been called upon to do that. Anyways, bottom of the top half, number 7. Who's it gonna be? And it is. Let me look here. BK's. So preseason rankings, we had them close as well. I think BK's was one spot above Purdy, sorry. Um, After a couple weeks, that kind of holds similar. BK is doing a little bit more in the early game compared to Purdy. Um, but pretty good spot for BK's after a role swap.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
something to point out. He's probably one of the few people that have swapped. We've seen some swaps, but I don't know if we've seen any like top to 80 carry swaps. So
mhm.
we're still building that chemistry. And for being top half on the rankings list and newish to a role, uh, can't complain there. Also, just a side note to give some old Rivals lore. I don't think I've said this in the past. BK's was one of the ones that he and I started Rivals back in 2010, competitive Call of Duty days. So,
He
side note
still
there.
owes you $40 or
He
whatever it
owes
is.
me more than that and a childhood, but We'll talk about that later.
Or not at all. The last thing I'll say about BK is did have the perfect game on Misfortune going deathless. It got
Oh,
the
leaking
MVP of the
strats.
series. What do you mean? It's all on paper. It's recorded. We streamed it. Anyways, number 6. Ventropy B
Entropy
or Ventropy
5.
5 for
Wait, is it
OSGS.
entropy? Oh my
It's
goodness.
Ventropy.
It's entropy with
Oh,
V
with
on
two
both
V's.
sides. Of course.
Of course, of
Anyway.
course. Uh, Ventropy, I think, was number 5 in the stats as well. It was number 6. My apologies.
Okay.
And was number 6 on the rankings.
And
I
I
think
had
you
him
had him at
6.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what a coincidence.
So really solidly is number 6 for Ventropy, putting up decent numbers despite some hot and cold from OSGS. One of these players that as the season goes on, I'm curious to see where they actually do end up falling because the peak of AD carry on this list is very high.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he'll get close to it, but there's always a chance.
Yeah, not the best showing against OTLO and Kokino in the bot lane, but decent enough showing to stay top 6. So pulled out the Aphelios. I feel like that's the first one we've seen in this split, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Not a champ that we've seen very often. But we move on to the top 5 key falling from the number 1 spot. Now, full transparency, after I wrote the article, Key did come out and say he was playing with 103 fever, which if you've never played when you're actually like sick as a dog, it's not fun playing League of Legends because it actually is a mentally taxing game, which is why people are so toxic, in my opinion. Either way, the showing wasn't great from Key. Justifiably still in the top half, but fell quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been super sick and played League, but that's just because I decide not to get sick. So I don't really know. I can't speak to that.
You got that willpower.
Yeah, you just don't do it. So I don't know.
It's like dying. When you're about to die, just say no.
Exactly. I've never done it. I don't know. One of the few players I feel like that have dropped from the number 1 spot, but I also feel like all the other number 1s have been their team have been winning, so it's tough to justify any of the other ones.
Well, and Key had some ridiculous stats coming out of
the first game.
The first week, yeah. So
That's fair. So
it was between him and Nike Dragon and Kukino from week 1. So
I don't know. We just played against them. It was a good matchup, I think. I'll admit on my listings, since the 2 teams that we've played, 80 carries are Ferdy and Key. I had Ferdy slightly above Key. Just that's only first-hand knowledge. So, but top 5 nonetheless. We'll see. It bounces back after his flu game.
number 4. Also, I will say going forward, if you guys keep saying that you were sick after not performing up to expectation, I won't believe you. You only get one. You only get one. You only get sick once. After that, you gotta figure it out. Number 4, Efron. We've talked about it. I feel like we talked about it a lot, honestly, about how Efron and Poodle and Chrome Malone kind of make up for some shortcomings on the top side of TFF. I think Efron, if I remember correctly, about 30% of his team's damage. CSing, 7.5 per minute. Doing a good. He has 78% KP coming out of the 80 carry role. When your top laner is only 31% KP, it just means that you're getting advantages not only in your lane but as the game goes on. So hasn't separated himself into the top 3, but that's just because the 80 carries in this league are very good.
Yeah. And really not playing. I mean, he played Zaya in Jinx. I really haven't been seeing very much Jinx, but definitely popped off on the Zaya, 12-1, 12-1-8. So deserving for a team that's what they're 1-1, right?
Yep.
Or maybe 1-2, 1-1. Okay. So
lost against Plasma Wolves, which is a good team.
Yeah, that's half a loss.
it's a quality loss, as college football fans would
Mm,
like to say. One hand for TDB. TDB, the bright spot, I think, has been one hand and his variety of supports. Hasn't played with the same support 2 weeks in a row,
true.
but that really hasn't affected his play at all. 61% KP, 28% of his team's damage, CSing well, and so really solid player.
Yeah, not the best showing game one against PLW, but I don't know if it's really fair to give every team that plays PLW a pass. But it's just putting respect on Plasma Wolf's name. But not the best showing on the Lucian paired with the Braum game one, but did pop off even though they lost game two. Popped off with the Varus dropping 19 kills.
And to the top two at number 2 for all our OTLO fans.
DLO crybabies in the chat. Here's your number 2.
Yeah, of course it's the solo laners that were a little bit upset, but that is going to become the norm if we think you're the weak link of your team. Kukino is not a weak link of their team.
No. I see Corrupt and Coquina right next to each other on the
Yep.
on the aftermath. Read them both, but 9-1-6 on the Jin. I feel like Jin's one of the AD carries that I just feel like fell off the face of the earth in competitive and ranked play. I don't ever see that champ, so popping off on that champ is very good to see. And then didn't do anything too crazy on the Misfortune. Decent damage, but enough to pull out the win. So I think Coquina's been towards the top.
Yeah, last week was tied for second, so
Okay, yeah. So if you
hasn't moved.
win a game, you're not really gonna drop too far, especially if you pop off at least one of the games. So much deserved.
And we have talked about number 1. Gonna be hard to supplant. I feel like when you look across like the roles, Nike Dragon and ADC is gonna be really hard to take away that number 1 spot. The other one is Latex Monkey Nuts in Jungle. Gonna be pretty hard to kind of wrestle that position from them and then triumphant from support. Everything else, really solid players in the roles, but those 3 are kind of like a little bit above the rest. Poodle 25 is close on Triumphant Sales, but for Nike Dragon, like I said, doing 35% of his team's damage, CSing well, over 7 a minute. The KP is there, 66%. Not as high as jungler support, but that's typical. The most efficient 80 carry on a very good team. Number 1.
Yeah, I don't
Mic drop.
foresee Nike Dragon dropping from this spot. I could see them even if they lose to one of the good teams that they play. I could still see them holding on to number 1, but
I mean,
see.
they really gotta have a Praetor's week 1 performance if they're gonna if Nike's gonna drop
a
down.
flu game type
Yeah,
shit.
flu game kind of.
But yeah, there you have it. Last but not least, we'll just jump right into it.
Yeah, we'll just jump right into it.
Because yeah, we got about 15 or so minutes left.
We can make it work. The week 2 rankings for the teams overall at number 14. It's gonna be OSGA. So OSGA, it's tough, right? Because they play TFF so well. You'd think that I've been hyping them up in the stream. They'd be higher than 14. Unfortunately, they haven't picked up a win. DPH has, and some of the stats from OSGA when they fall apart really, really hard. So unfortunately for them, somebody's got to be number 14, and that is Avalanche.
Yeah, and I don't know if they officially were last week. They were on my list. So they stuck at 14. Silver lining, they won't be 14th next week.
Yeah.
And they are in the much tougher Sector 1. So who knows what they would be if they were in Sector 2.
Yes.
Speaking
Moving
of
on.
DPH.
Yeah, OSG was 14th last week. GPH was 13th last week and is once again this week. Did get one win in the match against BLM. Did not get the series win, unfortunately for them. Showed a little bit of life, a little bit more firepower than OSGA, but only by just a sliver. So 13th spot for DPH.
Yeah, I think we're even with most of the players, um, pretty consistent with the team rankings. It's just tough to justify these two, even if they swapped around, which that's fine if they did. Yeah, they're gonna have to show something different to move up this list. It just feels like those two are solidified at the bottom for now.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a fight between them. I think DPH, the beneficiaries of being in Sector 2, could maybe potentially pick up a win throughout the season. Either way, I think those two teams are gonna play each other in the Rivals Week, unless an upset happens this coming week. Number 12, CEW.
Boo,
Um,
boo.
yeah, ooh, the quitters. Stats wise, was a little bit more efficient than both these teams, despite also being 0-2. Um, did pick up a not a series win, but a match win in week 1.
Yeah,
Um, so
but none of that matters now because they're quitters and they'll be dropped from the list. But at least they ended not last, I guess. Maybe.
07's in the chat for CEW. The team that they took on in week 1, I believe. Don't quote me on that because now I am not confident. Uh, they did not. It was BLM, I think. Or no. It was Veracity. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I don't know what I'm
What?
talking
I
about.
don't know. I had Veracity middle of the pack
Anyways,
last week and this week,
Ver-
but it's not important.
Veracity at number 11. Um, what can we say about Veracity? Tough week 1, bounce back in week 2. I don't know if they'll get their formula for success again next week, which was that Maokai Rise Karma combo. Um,
Yeah, I think Veracity's on my list of teams that are letting me down a little bit, but still have hopes for because they do have solid players. We're all of 2 weeks in, still a few more weeks to go, and they're also in Sector 2, so I don't think they have any issue making playoffs and seeing what they can do.
The week 1 definitely hurting them. I think the stats, they're slightly above DPH and OSGA, if I recall. Um, as well as they're on par with like TFF. So we'll have to see if they continue to climb. Number 10, HPB. So when I talk about the stats, Veracity actually dropped from number 8 to number 11 despite the win. That's because we didn't have stats the week 1 rankings. The stats were kind of eye-opening to me. We could talk a little bit about that. Um, Either way, uh, right there in the middle third for Veracity. Number
Uh,
10 is HPB.
oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I
I was
didn't.
clarifying.
I was
They
typing,
dropped.
so I didn't know which one you were dropping. If you're talking about
Uh,
HPV or
uh,
VC.
they dropped from 8, but it's because I didn't have stats available, and so they're not as efficient as some teams, and so that's why they're right there at number 11. But I think part of that was because of their week 1. Regardless, um, they didn't move too much.
Fair.
HPB, uh, number 10, dropping from number 9. We talked about them a little bit in the previews. Solid on paper. Did lose to us 2-1, which is better than a 2-0, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
with a close game too. I think since they were already at ninth and then losing, it's just kind of natural that you'd still be in that same-ish spot. I think they're a solid team, which I assume they're in our division. Yeah. Um, I don't know. I think they're also make playoffs. Um, and you can blame the flu game. So it's like I
yeah.
don't know. They're gonna climb.
There's always something to blame if you're in the lower part of these rankings. Uh, number 9 for the
Yeah, as
team
of right now, I
power
cannot snooze
rankings.
it, and we have 5 minutes. So you do with that information what you want.
We'll go for the first half, and then we'll do an ad, despite it being probably annoying for everybody watching. Number 9 is Roar, up from number 10, despite the 1-2 loss. Have picked up 2 wins in their matches, despite losing both 1-2. Um, Stats are a little high on Roar, despite them losing, which tells me that they're just falling apart in the mid to late game. Um,
They just can't close out games. Maybe I don't know if you've watched.
I haven't been able to. I don't know if Roar. They used to stream games way back in the day when I was just a wee lad. But they moved up and Veracity dropped, despite I think Veracity beat them in week 2.
Veracity lost week 1, and RAR
I'm all
lost
over
week
the
2.
place.
We're talking about RAR. RAR lost
We're talking
one
about
two.
Roar. We're talking about practice.
Talking about practice, man. We're talking about Luca AD, man.
We're talking about yeah.
Now RAR took a game off of NLE, who I think we both agree is a
Oh
solid team.
yes,
So
yes.
um, it's just yeah,
So,
RAR's just I don't know.
dude,
Win or
Roar's
lose,
like
decide. Are you good or are you bad?
they're
Pick one.
they're like a bouncy ball right now. You just can't tell where they're gonna end up. They're still bouncing around. You'd be awesome. I did clarify week 1. I didn't have stats. Week 2, I do have stats. Not as efficient as I'd like to see, so it did lead to a drop. We'll say week 2 is a little bit more accurate than week 1. We'll call it like that. I do think it's maybe for you guys, but regardless. Number 8.
Number 8.
Number
Some
8,
chill,
8 the
some chill
Great.
guys.
Some chill guys. TFF. So here was an eye-opening stat for you, or for me, for everyone. And do my little calculation. OSGA last, of course. DPH second to last, of course.
Hmm.
Third to last, TFF. Thoughts?
Stats don't matter. What do you mean?
Stats don't matter. I
uh,
mean, it was a little eye-opening. I'm not gonna lie. It made me a little bit worried for TFF going forward. Especially because I watched their VOD against OSGA and their early game really did not look great. And so
yeah, but
I
they hasn't TFF.
they're 1-1.
Oh,
They
they
lost
played
to
the.
PLW and they beat OSGA.
Yeah, so that's tough. You lose to the in past number 1 team and in past worst team. So it's how do you gauge it? Which one holds more weight? It's kind of tough, huh?
Yeah.
Beat the worst team, lose to the best team. I guess most people would fall into that category, so it's just kind of tough. So that's where the stats are interesting. I ranked them pretty high, but
Yeah, you
hey,
did.
I'm just here.
I don't know. I thought, stats don't tell the whole story. I mean, they played wildly different spectrums of opponents between week to week. I just thought it was interesting that the stats have them on par with DPH and OSGA, which if you watch the OSGA series, despite the 2-0 win, you would think that they were pretty evenly matched. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this TFS downfall? I
Well,
don't know.
they were preseason ranked 1,
Yeah,
so that's maybe why. Because
like
they
high
started.
expectations too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and so they've been falling. It's just since they started at 1, that's just as far as they've gone. I don't know. They fall into the bucket of I, I think they're better than they're showing, but we'll see. We'll see week 3 if they play.
We will see before we get into the last half of these power rankings. It's good to see the chat popping off. I will say it's all biased opinion with a little bit of with statual factuals mixed in there. We will take a break because otherwise you guys are gonna get ad blocked. That's not fun. Um,
Yep.
right on
No,
cue. Here it
nowhere,
comes up.
no way, no way around it. Or else I would snooze it and we would make it through it. So we will be right back for the top 7.
It's been 3.5 hours, and we're nearing the end. We have the last half of the power rankings of the teams to go.
Last half of the stream. Oh,
Oh yeah, last half, another 3 hours. No, last half of the power rankings for the teams to go, and then I think CB will kind of say some departing thoughts, do a little bit of a plug or whatnot.
maybe.
We appreciate all the support that was shown thus far. Once again, do want to remind everybody, uh, th this is all made up. It doesn't matter. It's all just for fun. So if things don't make sense, you're right. It probably doesn't make sense. If people are upset, they have every right to be. But
Yeah, yeah,
it's just all in good fun, all in good jest.
yeah. It's a mix of a bunch of different things. So, and I actually feels like I'm gonna do it right now to get spicy with it. Before we finish the team rankings,
Yeah, there you go.
spicy plug. Um, we still have at least one spot open for the tournament that we are hosting this Friday at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Most teams in the Gold Platilo are eligible to play it. We have a rule book and eligible requirements and blah, 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 blah. So hit either one of us up or it's in the Discord. It's probably posted in one of the Discords you're in. If you're interested, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, to give you a little bit of insight into what we do with these, it's just a 1 day tournament. We always like to have a little fun surprise, keep the content quality up. So I think we started at Christmas time, had like a little snow rift action going on, and then we played again in January. We threw it
Throwback.
back to the old rift. VODs are on our YouTube as well, so if you want to look at like what that's like, if you want to participate, highly recommend. But anyways, what everyone is here for, the last half of the team power rankings, 7 through 1. BK's gonna or BK's CB is gonna find the spot here.
What the hell?
That
Don't
that
disrespect
was
me. Don't
weird.
disrespect
Yeah,
me, man.
that's all right. My bad. My bad. Number 7, TDB falling from number 3 after week 1. Did lose to Plasma Wolves 2-0. So kind of a big drop after losing to one of the top teams of the league. Um,
Yeah.
Stats weren't very high on TDB as well. Was the bottom half for them. So right in the middle for number 7. Not a bad place to be for a 1-1 team heading into week 3. Any other further thoughts from UCB?
Yeah, on one hand, it's like, oh, it feels bad we dropped a decent amount after just one loss. But you got one of the best teams out of the way, and you're still top 7. Um, so obviously you lost 2-0. At least one of the games wasn't the most close game ever. Second game looked like it was a banger, but still top 7. I still think a solid team. They're in Division or Sector 1. So we'll see. I think it's going to end up being a battle between a lot of us teams for the third, fourth spot. We'll see how they do.
We'll see how they do. We'll experience it firsthand as well. Number 6, right outside the top 5, OSGS. OSGS is a team stats are very high on, which was both surprising and unsurprising to me. OSGS, looking at their schedule that they've had so far, winning against Roar 2-1, and then losing to OTLO. So number 6, pretty fair rating. Could say there might be too high, might be too
It's one of the
low. It's
teams where I
just
would have guessed they were lower, but I think it's just maybe just kind of been overlooking the team. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I think they've been playing the most solid team for the teams that are flying under the radar. So I don't know. I think they're just kind of sneaky good, but again,
Yeah.
only 2 weeks in, so we'll see how they end up. Top
To
6
be
though.
fair, was number 6 last week as well, so to not change in
Which
the ranking spot.
is good and bad depending.
Yeah, good and bad. Into the top 5 we go, starting with what might be
I see some bias, man.
some bias.
Rivals is bias. That's crazy, man.
stats are high on rivals, and you can look at that any way you want. You could say that we're a bunch of bums. It's a sham. We're in the top half, but not in the top three. We're right at number 5 for the stats. Had a nice win against HPB. Did lose against NLE. Stats are pretty high on NLE. Hint, hint. Um, I don't know. You can say we're too high. I'd be fine
uh,
with it. I mean, 1-1 so far. We're right in these teams. OSGS 1-1, TDB 1-1, TFF 1-1,
nice.
Roar, the one exception being 0-2. Expect Roar to, if they lose again, probably drop pretty dramatically with Veracity and those guys moving up. But I don't know. That's tough.
Our, I guess I'm seeing it now. OSGS on the standings list says they're 2-1. Oh, is it because of the CE game? Is that why it
Yeah,
says
they've
that?
already put the CE games in
Okay,
there.
so they're
Yeah.
1-1. Okay, that's what I thought. So I guess we think we're the highest ranked 1-1 team. I guess is what we're saying here. We'll see. I initially thought that after week 2 we would know like pretty clear on most team and a lot of players. I now think that's not the case. I think it's going to be after week 3.
Yeah.
I feel like not as much clarity as I thought we would have. So I think week 3 is the one.
I think week 3 and week 4, because I think week 4 is the rival week when all of the sectors play against each other except for whoever gets matched up against
See
contingent.
who's probably at the bottom. I assume. Do they just what happens
Uh,
then? Do they just get a bye, or
I
does
don't
the
know.
number 1 team get a
I
bye?
don't know what LXC is gonna do. I would
Hmm.
imagine that the LXC wants to have the best teams play, so maybe the worst team gets thrown a bone. Either way, after weeks 3 and 4, I think is when we'll really start to see, all right, were we justified in being so low on Sector 2? Are some of these teams separating from themselves? Um, but we will see. Number 4, BLM. Um, Anticipated matchup against rivals, the 4 and 5 spot there.
Yeah.
Also 1-1. So,
Oh, I lied then.
um,
Are they? No, they're 2-0.
yeah.
They're 2-0.
Oh, sorry, 2-0. They did lose one game to DPH, which in my eyes is a loss. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, I think BLM's a really good team. I think they have a really good mid jungle duo. Number 4, not quite cracking the top 3. Um, for all these undefeated teams. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe underrated. Maybe it's Sector 2 bias. I'm not sure.
Maybe it's because we're about to play them bias. We have to humanize them. We can't rank them 1, right? Right before we play them. I think it'll be a good series tomorrow night between the 4 and 5 spots, and then we'll see who jumps who or
Yeah,
separates.
we'll see. Into the top
3
3
pick number
we go.
2.
This might be a
What
little bit
the hell?
surprising. VLW is number 3.
That's not me.
It is stats. So PLW, excuse me, ranked. Let me count it out because I don't actually have it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in terms of team efficiency. You can look into that what you will. Um, was surprising to me. Ends up putting him in the top 3. So they
Hmm.
actually went down after a loss, but we didn't have the stats after week 1. So I don't know, some drama. I think this is a very good team. I will say, when you look at their strength of schedule so far, I'm not going to be a hater, but TFF Chill Guys was right outside the bottom of the barrel for stats. TDB, middle of the pack team. They went the distance in game 2, ended up with the victory. I don't know. I think I think stats will correct themselves as PLW plays more games, but from the small sample size we have, they doesn't think they're the most gold efficient, or not even gold efficient, just efficient in general.
Okay. Okay. I say we might think about the weight we put on stats for just for team rankings.
I
But
mean, we do it just like the players.
well, the players are a little different. I would
How?
I would say, because your team doesn't need to have good stats necessarily to win games.
Well, you think that if you're like top team, you're like killing it in the stats department.
Perhaps. Yeah, I do think it'll all end up
It'll work
turning
out.
out. But no surprise they're top three. A little bit of a surprise they're not top two. Um, but that's okay. All of their players got medals today, so they still get a medal. Top three.
Yeah, we will see. I That was my biggest surprise. I even asked CB about it, and I was like, I don't know if we should put this out there, but number two is OTLO.
We decided that we would do it all the same metric. So while the top three might seem a little spicy,
We can try
uh,
to we'll reassess and hone in, especially if week three doesn't stand. But OTLO at number two, slightly above PLW, but I will say not in the top five for efficiency.
hmm, okay, okay, it's interesting. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we could just be correct, and it just seems weird. I don't know. I
We also could
know.
just be really wrong. It's gonna look bad, but either
I don't
way,
think.
I'm
I
for it.
think now
I
PLS
think it's
top
hype.
top three for sure. The 4-5 matchups hype. Um, OTLO. I know some people were crying earlier. Here you go. It's almost as good as you can get. Um, we'll see. I mean, at least it worked out to where the four undefeated teams are the top four, so at least that makes sense. But yeah, we'll
The
see.
biggest
OTLO.
surprise is at the number one spot. So NLE was number five, comes off a win against the cross divisional Roar, which stats are high on Roar despite them being 0-2. Uh, I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks like I gotta reassess how I did this, but part of me also thinks like maybe we're not getting the full story because if you look at the way this week two ranking kind of fell, Sector 2 has very high highs and then very low lows in terms of like how their teams are spread, while Sector 1 is a lot more middle of the pack conglomerate. And so maybe that's why we kind of think Sector 1 is just better than Sector 2. I don't know though. I think for the time being, this is just gives some drama and spice, but I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, you could say. Let's see, who did PL? We could say PLW's best opponent is seventh. NLE's is five. I don't know. Does NLE's efficiency? I mean, is it scuffed because our game one situation? I guess we played the whole game, so but just the second half was 3v5. So I don't know if that plays into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not
know.
super
I mean,
pressed
because
about
they
it. We
also,
grade everybody's paper the same. It's just how
yeah.
it felt, and I'm not. I think it's a little spicy, but I'm gonna put some respect on NLE's name.
I mean, if you zoom out and look at it, right, the top four teams are the only teams that are undefeated. Like, at the end of the day, right? It makes sense that they would be in the top four. It's just the order of it, in our eyes, looks a little weird because of the teams that are undefeated. I believe PLW and OTLO are the only ones that haven't dropped games, but they're at 2 and 3 instead of 1 and 2. Um, I don't know. I don't. I don't really know what to make of it. Either NLE is really good and just really is just a bad game one, team. They're game one Andes. Either way, it's. I think it's. I think it's pretty solid. Like you said, we grade everybody's paper the same way. So, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it
there
would
you
be
have it.
boring. It would be boring if it was just like a. Obviously, everybody knows what they are. So I like it. I like it. We'll see. Do any of other than 4 versus 5? Do we have any top
Matchups.
matchups this week? PLW plays Hydro. I know we went over this at the very beginning, but that was like yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think anybody really. I mean,
S-
Italy versus TFF. I'm still pretty
yeah.
high on TFF, but obviously they're ranked 8th here, so no crazy high matchups. But there could be some upsets.
So you did call This is why I don't think it's weird. When we looked at the OTLO Roar game, you did call Roar upsetting 2-1,
True, true.
and the stats were high on Roar, even though they were sitting at ninth.
Yeah, I think RAR and TFF could be higher. I mean, I had TFF like top 4, so who knows? Yeah, I expected. I didn't really look at this before, so I'm seeing it now for the first time.
He's just as shocked as all of you.
Hmm, I would have guessed that PLW was 1, OTLO or NLE were 2, 3. Um, so I think PLW is really the one. I think I'm more shocked about them rather than NLE, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. That's the final power rankings. Coming off of week 2, of course, I expect these to change. I don't think we figured out Sentinel quite yet. Lots of a variety of factors that you know make the game so fun, right? If we knew who was gonna win, we wouldn't play the game. That's why we play the game.
True.
I don't know. I will be. I think week 4 will be very fun to talk about the lead up to. Um,
A lot of changes. Potential.
Potential
Oh,
changes
Sector
coming off
1,
of
clean
the rules of
sweep
week 3.
versus Sector 2. Okay.
That would be crazy. I don't think it will happen,
Yeah, I
but
don't think
that
it'll
would be
happen.
crazy. Um, like I said, I think Sector 2 has like they have a really solid team and OTLO, but their lows are a lot lower.
Yeah, and they're gonna
Um,
be up against PLW, NLE, one of those two,
yeah,
probably. So yeah, I don't know. Matchup wise, looking across the board, I don't know. I don't think it'll happen, but I could see it being like, what, out of 6 games, 4-2. Mm,
maybe. I don't
see.
know. We'll have to see how the actual like matchups are, like what team is playing which.
Yeah, once it's
When do
actually
we get to
solidified,
week 4? Which we should know pretty much
we can show it next stream.
right after week 3.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess it'll be a part of the predictions. So
yeah, week 4 will be fun. I think well, depending on how week 3 goes. If week 3 goes pretty much according to plan, aka like the teams that should win win and the teams that should lose lose. Week 4 will give more clarity on the strength of each sector. Um, and that will be pretty helpful moving forward. But I don't know. I just like I don't know. There's a lot of moving pieces in Sentinel. Stats. So to be fully transparent, stats have Roar number 4, despite being winless.
fair.
And so you have like that going on where it's like, can Roar figure it out? Because like stats think they're a good team, even though they're not winning. They think OSGS is 3, even though they're 1-1 right now. So like, is Sector 2 actually pretty good? And they're just cannibalizing. Um, I will say Roar's loss came against NLE, which NLE was ranked number 1. So
Yeah.
it's just like I like well, the more I look at the stats and like the more I like kind of like take an introspective about like what's kind of my own bias. Like is Sector 2 sneakily good?
I
I don't
think
know.
coincidentally, I mean the game between us and Braun Lives Matter tomorrow um, is going to be a good pulse check.
Yeah.
I mean we're third in Sector 1 and they're second in Sector 2.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I think that'll be a good check to see.
It will be streamed. You guys will all be in matches, but there'll at least be a
True.
VOD of it.
Did any games? No, every game is happening tomorrow. So I don't know. They can watch it later.
Anyways, you guys let us know um, if you guys want to see how the week 2 rankings change from week 1. The week 1 VOD is up on YouTube. You can just sift around, and we should probably like put like bookmarks or check marks or how they do that on YouTube, so you could just click around. Either way, um, check out the little, they're not so little, the very long tournament, 1 day tournaments we do. Um,
About
appreciate
as
all
long as this
the
stream.
appreciate all the love, the subs, the follows.
Oh yeah. I don't even think I got to because we were talking earlier. Much appreciated to. I'm just gonna keep saying Drac and Rich. I don't know if that's how you say it. Drac and Rich, Corrupt, Chrome Alone, and Racks on Racks on Racks for the follows. Very much appreciated.
Very much appreciated indeed. This has been Righteous. That's CB. Uh, y'all have a nice night. We'll leave you with that NLE surprise #1 ranking. I'm
Yep.
sure Sentinel chat will be coming alive here tomorrow morning.